This episode is sponsored by Harlow, an interactive platform to share audio, a beautiful player, timestamp comments, and voice notes. Upload and custom name as many versions as you need to and toggle seamlessly between them with instant playback. Check out our personal page at highnote.fm/helpmedevon, where we'll occasionally give our listeners the ability to submit songs to our page for feedback. I'll leave a link in the description below. Now, on to your episode. Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's your boy Devvon Terrell, and welcome to the Audio Nerds podcast, the podcast for audio nerds like yourself. Please make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Also, remember, one lucky person in the comment section is going to get that VIP Rosetta compressor. Please leave a dope comment. Leave your @name for Instagram so we can hit you up and tell you won. The best comment will win. I think you're going to leave a fire comment because today we have a special guest. But before I say that, before I show you anything, I know this looks a little strange. I know you're trying to figure it out. I'm Devvon Terrell. I'm a Pro Tools user. To the right of me,
the FL God, Luther Band Draws, FL Studio.
I never heard you pull that one out. I'm not gonna lie, that was new.
Off the top, bro.
Okay, I didn't think of nothing.
L-Jane, FL user.
All right, I appreciate you. That was clean. You didn't give me any sass. I like that.
Oh, just wait till later.
I know. To the left of me, we have...
You know, it's your boy, the Ableton Door Slayer. Okay. It's your boy Courtney Love. You know, I'm taking that one.
That's new. Oh, wait. That's you got. Okay, everybody. Everybody wrote something new today. I ain't gonna lie. Y'all showing out. So we good. So everybody's introduced. Everybody's good.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know if I'm good yet, bro. No, I'm playing.
All right. Thank you. So long story short, I know you're looking at the set. I know you're wondering like, where the heck are we? What's happening? Today we have a very, very special guest. And I want to say this is because of y'all. Long story short, a while ago we posted a clip. And I remember I yelled out to you guys that I wanted to know a trick from this person. I was like, I really want to know how this person did A, B, C. And because of y'all, he heard it, and he's here today. This man really doesn't need an intro because I know we're all really big fans of him. Grammy nominated.
A million platinums.
A million platinums, from Chris Brown to countless names. The man that's not afraid to burn his auto-tune into the track.
Which we gonna get into. Which we definitely going into.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have Teezio!
The legend.
Thank you guys for having me, man.
What's up, man?
I'm Teezio and I'm a Pro Tools user.
Yeah, there we
Fire.
go. Once again, we on the board, baby.
Already starting on a bad note.
No, we're not starting on a bad note. Not at all. We're not starting on a bad note.
I'm not about to lie. It's about to be a good note because shout out to all of our guests. He's the only one that came ready with that.
That's a fact.
He's been tuning in.
I learned quickly.
Facts. Yeah.
Now I was like, all right, what am I gonna say?
You gotta rep your door. Yeah, we get a lot of like people
like
in the comments that like our comment section is crazy.
It goes
people
crazy.
just like repping their door and stuff like that.
Yeah, everyone has their own way of doing shit, and it's like nothing is. To be honest, in music, nothing's really wrong unless you're hitting the wrong notes together, which still could be considered not wrong if you think about it, because there's noise concerts that people do, and like that shit don't have note. You know what I mean? So it's like there's no wrong or right. It's art. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Throw paint on the wall,
Except for Audacity. Stop.
Except for Audacity, that's a fact. Shout out Audacity. One thing I want to ask you, and this is a great place to start.
Okay.
I always ask everyone this when they first come.
Okay.
And it's, what is your DAW journey? So what DAW did you start in, like from the get, and then where have you landed? Obviously, we know it's Pro Tools that you ended in, but where did you start at first?
I started in Pro Tools, so
nice.
But I did dabble in other shit in between. But like when I was probably 15, I remember going to this music store and I wanted to record, and it was like there wasn't Ableton and Logic wasn't a thing.
Right.
It was Pro Tools MBox 7.
Wow.
Empowered 7.
Empowered 7,
with the red box.
Yeah.
And so my dad bought me that shit, and I remember going home with the CDs. It was like 5 CDs, and I remember installing that shit and not knowing. I didn't know about the iLock.
Right.
I went back to the music store the next day. I was like, hey, so I installed the CDs, and what do I can't get it to work.
Right.
And he's like, well, you gotta have the iLock, you gotta register the thing, and you gotta all this shit. So like I didn't know how any of it worked.
Right.
And once I did get it working, I knew even less about how to get it
That's
going.
a fact, right? Because once you open it, I'm pretty sure it was
and you're like
overwhelming.
15, 16 years old.
Right.
No, YouTube was like in its infancy.
Right.
You couldn't just Google and be like, oh, how do I do this in Pro Tools? Like it wasn't, that information didn't exist like it does now on the internet.
Right.
So I feel like other people have a way bigger leg up on stuff than I did coming up. If I wanted to know something, I had to go to back to the music store to ask the guy.
That's a fact.
Or ask someone that knew, because there was no searching this shit. Now it's like, even now, like I might have an issue with something and I'll I'll search like in YouTube, like, yo, Pro Tools crashing, I'm in this OS X.
Right.
And they're like, oh, well, it's got a problem with Autotune, or it's got a problem with this, and that's why you got to do this. And it's like, you can find answers now that I could have never found back then.
And you came out of school and went right into engineering school, if I'm not mistaken. Did you go to engineering
right
school?
Right out. I was actually, the funny story is I was in high school. I went to this magnet high school that didn't have sports. It was all about music, math, and computer science.
Shout out magnet programs.
Shout out magnet programs.
Yeah, so basically to graduate, you had to do an internship program. If you didn't do the internship, you couldn't graduate, even if your grades were good, whatever.
Okay.
So I interned at this place called YMA, and that was at the time that Sarah Bareilles song, I'm Not Gonna Write You a Love Song, that song was blowing up.
Oh, right.
So she was signed to that label.
Oh, wow.
So I was like the intern there, like sending out merch. You know how like ours was, I would send out merch. I'd get coffees, I'd clean the trash. The engineers in the studio would fucking like berate me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I was
just
like
violate. I know how it is. Yeah, you know, I know the vibes.
And there was a guy named Sonny that was signed there, and that's who Skrillex is. And so Sonny was in a band called From First to Last. And so I remember being at that studio, and like the band From First to Last would come, and all of them had like crazy emo hair.
Yeah.
And it was like, now I look back at it and I'm like, holy shit, like I was there when Sonny broke out, because I remember the label was like not allowing him to do certain stuff. So that's what pushed him to start doing his own thing.
Wow. So that's why he kind of went to his solo route and started doing that.
And what's funny is I ended up working with him a few years back with this girl CL from Korea. And when I got in the studio with him, he was like the nicest fucking guy. So I felt comfortable to be like, do you remember YMA? He's like, yeah. I was like, I was the intern there. He's like, yo, he stopped the whole session. He's like, yo, this guy was working at the record label when I was From First to Last. And like, he was just like such a nice guy.
Right. He was super
and
down
so,
to earth.
and that goes into temperature reading in rooms and knowing when to speak and when not to.
Right. For sure.
Right. So it was like, I
Right.
could see that he was just such an open guy and so kind to everyone. So I felt comfortable to say something.
Get you. Okay.
But that's a huge thing, is reading the room, right? And that's
Absolutely.
why I was able to do it.
I mean, you as a recording engineer and mixer, which by the way is such a, like, that, for instance, right? Being an engineer that records and mixes.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of like a new thing. That's kind of like a picture that also like hits. Like,
it
that's
was
kind
the
of like
starting point.
Yeah.
So it was like, I couldn't just decide, like I was working for Chris, and the way that I started to really mix, like obviously all of us at some capacity mix.
Yes.
Right.
Whether we're mixers or not, like if you're a recording engineer, you're making a rough mix, the artist is asking you to do shit, it's mixing part of it, right? So when I was working with Chris, there was the Heartbreak album we put out. We had Jason mix it, and then the Indigo album. I remember there was this R&B record, the da-na-na-na-na-na-na. We sampled that song.
Oh, right.
So Chris was like, "Yo, we should do this ourselves," because Chris is very about putting on his own team and keeping things in house. Like he had an in-house video guy and in-house. He liked in-house because he had control over the things.
Right.
And Chris likes to make sure that he's the head of everything, which is, as an artist, you should be doing that, because especially at that level.
Right.
So Chris was like, you should mix this, blah, blah, blah. So together we sort of got it to a place where he was happy with it.
Right.
But it's not one of those things where you say, okay, yesterday I was a recording engineer, today I'm a mixer, bye, I'm not recording anymore.
Right.
It has to be a very smooth transition. And so from Indigo all the way up until last year, I stopped recording for Chris.
Oh, wow.
So we're talking about 3 or 4 years of mixing while still recording Chris.
Right.
And I was still recording Chris when I mixed Industry Baby, when I mixed First Class.
Right.
So I was literally like living the hype off of Industry Baby going #1 and going to the studio at night
And recording
Chris.
Right.
You know what I mean? It wasn't, and I had to do that because I needed to make sure that if I jumped off the ship, you can't just like jump off, because you mix one record, that doesn't mean that everyone's crawling to come have you. Like I mixed Industry Baby, that didn't mean that all of a sudden I had 100 clients trying to have me mix a record.
Right.
It took time of mixing that, then mixing First Class, then doing that
To get your name
to
around.
slowly get the name around, because
from First Class to that, it still took time for you
it
to
took
get,
a second, you know, like, oh, I mixed it. It helped, it leveraged my career, which is great.
Right.
But I had to keep working with Chris until I felt comfortable saying, I don't need to be recording anymore because I'm so busy with mixing.
Interesting.
And that's really important, because you don't want to find yourself in a place where you're a recording engineer, maybe you have a $3,000 apartment, but in New York, maybe $5,000 apartment.
Facts. Thank you for
and all these
inflation.
things. Yeah, thank you for inflation. And then jump off the ship and then be like, oh my God, I'm scrambling. Oh, I'm fucked up. Because one thing about it is, like, when you're like really struggling, it really affects the music and it affects your ability to like be pumped up to work.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I feel like if you're struggling, trying to patient, do all that shit, you're going to not focus on doing what you need to do the best.
Right.
So I had to get to that place where I knew I was making enough money to be comfortable
Right.
to be able to focus on mixing, because as you know, like if you're mixing some shit, someone's like, yo, the light bill, the lights are out now. You not really gonna be in the song no more. You're like, shit, I gotta pay this damn light bill. Let me go figure this out. So it's a distraction.
Right.
So I had to create an environment that I didn't have distractions.
Right.
And that's what I did. And so last year after I finished Breezy, Chris went on tour and I was like, yo, I'm gonna keep working with you. Anything you need, I'm gonna find you records. I'm gonna come and discuss things.
Wow.
I'm gonna mix all the shit.
Right.
I'm gonna do everything that I was doing for you at the same capacity except being in the room and recording.
And recording you.
So I put my boy JP in there, Genso, and he's a fire engineer.
Right.
He's worked with a lot of R&B artists. He worked with Young Thug. And so I knew that he was able to deal with
and
it.
take care of the whole thing.
With worse outside. So it's like CB is not hard to deal with at all.
Right.
But he requires a certain level
Yeah.
of being quick and being on point with shit.
For sure.
And so if you spend enough time getting cussed out in other rooms, when you get with Chris, you won't have any issue.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I've actually, I'll watch your process ad nauseum, right? Where you have the 3 tracks that you record, right? And then you're burning in the auto-tune on the actual track.
So we'll just talk about the generality so we don't get too focused on a person, but in general, I've always, and this comes from the writing world. So basically like, as a recording engineer, if you're not working with an artist, you're doing a lot of writing sessions for labels, for writers, for producers, whatever the case may be, which is a great way to work in a lot of different environments that are all different. Different writers have different ways of recording, right? So what I found was, especially with R&B shit and key changes that may happen in songs, when you have auto-tunes on every track, it can be difficult to like, first of all, with CPU, especially maybe 5 years ago where it wasn't where it's at, latency issues, and then you're copying, and then he's like, oh, change the auto-tune a little bit more, and you're like, okay, for which tracks? So you have to go, that's all taking time. So what I did was I committed. And I committed in life, and I made the writers commit.
My man don't got no commitment issues, because it was a big deal. When I first seen you even talking about that, I remember going, whoa, like that
but
is
not
like
every artist.
safe. Okay, got
Some
you.
artists, I'll ask people too, like not anymore because I don't record, but when I would ask like, hey, is it cool if I just print the auto-tune?
Right.
And most of the time they're like, yeah, and I would do it in a way where I wouldn't put more, I would always put less.
Okay.
Because you can always add more auto-tune.
Okay, right.
You can always add another plugin on there and put more, but you can never take it away.
Yeah, it's there.
So the thing was with certain artists, they didn't care. With certain artists, they wanted it, however they sounded when they were recording is how they wanted it to sound, period. If they didn't like it, they would recut it right there.
Right.
And then it would be right. And then that's it. There's no changing it.
Right.
Some artists and some writers, they want it to be not on there, which at that point I just have to readjust and know, okay, I'm gonna have to have auto-tune on every track and whatever. I don't prefer doing it that way because it causes issues with latency, like we were saying, and then when they want to change the retune speeds, or like, okay, just for this line or for the whole verse, and then if it's just for that line, you have to have another track that has its own auto-tune that has a little more on it. So whereas like if you're recording and you're committing and they're like, can you put more auto-tune for this? You can turn it up, they can record the line, and then you can either turn it back down or say, hey, do you want to keep this auto-tune or go back? And you can turn it back down on the printed one. You know what I mean?
So that's where that whole process came from, where it's just like, because in my head, I'm not going to lie to you, sometimes it's like, say for instance, the B section of a song has somewhat of a different chord progression, right? And we run into...
And the key changes.
Yeah, and the key changes. And then right there, I'm like, crap, I got to go to auto-tune. But my backgrounds, I want to be different at that part.
Exactly. So you got to go to each one. Yeah. And now the writer or the artist is in the booth like,
hello, let's go.
I'm waiting.
That makes sense. And you do it so much that you had to run into that problem to actually like start to do that. 100%. And stuff like that.
And you want to make it seamless. Anyone that's in the booth, you want to make it seamless. So you don't want them to almost see like where the things meet. You want it to be flush, like where they can't see where the wall meets the other wall type of shit.
Right.
And so especially like working with CB, like I record in a way where although I'm making choices and stopping the track in certain places, I'm always keeping him recording.
Right.
So like he records a track and then I'll immediately bring him back a bar back from where that started and start recording again. And while I have that one bar of time, I'm editing, bringing it up and all that shit because I want it to be completely seamless. If I stop the shit and there's like 2 or 3 seconds of silence, it can cause people's like thoughts to get to
just glimmer, fly away. That's for sure.
And so with experience, you start to learn that, and people will be like, "Hey man, fuck, I lost the line," and you're like, you start to realize, okay, how can I fix that? How can I create a more seamless environment? So like. On the inside of the booth, it sounds like everything's just constantly playing, but on the outside of the booth, it's like, like all this commotion happening.
Dog, let me say something, and maybe you don't even know this. When I'm watching you do it, the noise that I'm hearing is hilarious.
People think that I break key, like
you're clap. crack,
because,
like, yeah.
And then again, then it's the rhythm too. So I get everything in a rhythm with how the track's going, because if you get in that frequency in the rhythm, things tend to be smoother.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're doing edits and all this shit and you're not on the beat, kind of, and I know this is like very,
But I do understand where you're coming from, because
importance
once
it's
you get
subjective.
into, yes,
but
exactly.
I get in the rhythm like
Right.
and so that really helps me like stay in the rhythm and be quick.
Right.
And I'm in sync with the song almost.
There's something that I know Courtney and I have been talking about. So Courtney and I have recently gotten really obsessed with the CO1B. Like recently.
The outboard.
Yes.
The
whole thing. Because, you know, there's like plug-in emulations that people, it's like a gold rush. They're trying to run to the best CO1B right now. Because we all want it, but
there's different versions. Like AUAD one, there's an actual CO1B one.
Yes.
So there's different
Plug-in
ones. Nothing
Alliance.
is ever the real thing.
Warm audio. Facts.
But in a pinch.
Right.
make it
For
happen.
sure. Something. I was interested because Chris, and not even just Chris specifically, but Chris in general is a very dynamic singer.
Very dynamic,
Like he could be subtle and then he can go ape, right?
high.
So what I always wanted to know, because for some reason when I listen to your vocal mixes, they have this ability to stay very upfront.
Yep.
They're still extremely bright in a sense and very there. But then you have kind of like this 3D dimension to it where I feel like you're putting like an eighth note delay underneath. Like,
so that goes into the width thing that we were talking about earlier. So basically what I'll do is I'll put this like slap back eighth delay, but I'll filter it underwater so that you don't hear it, but you feel it.
Right.
And that brings width to the vocal as well as also creating like a dimensional thing. But it creates width without you necessarily saying, oh, there's a delay there making the width. You kind of just feel that the vocal's a little bit wider, but you're not noticing it right away that it's a delay until you really think about it, like you said, and you're like, oh, that's an eighth note delay. So that's one of my go-tos, and I also don't put like some people put a quarter note when we're recording. The quarter note's just like going. But when you're creating the mix in the song, I'm also creating space. So I'm only putting delays where I feel like quarter notes and half note delays where there's a moment.
where you're just like letting it throw.
Where you're letting it throw. And for some artists it's different. For some artists they want that constant constantly there, and so that's why everyone is so different. But specifically with certain records, especially the demo too, because as a mixer, I'm following the damn demo.
That's a fact.
The number one way for you to get the worst sentence, and that sentence being "What's your kill fee," is to not follow the demo. If you think, oh fuck the demo, I'm about to do me. You're dealing with it with a part of your ego that you shouldn't be. That's not your fucking song. You weren't there. All the delays and all the drops, they're there because they spent hours in the studio doing that. For you to come in and take that away because you think that it's not necessary is completely crazy.
It's
now,
crazy.
there are times where you're like, okay, in the demo the delay is way too loud. Let me just bring it down or compress it a little bit. So there's ways to work around and compromise. But to sit there and like be like, oh fuck, that's stupid.
Take control,
It's like that's where the thinking is going to get you to the point where the artist's going to hear the mix and be like, it doesn't really sound like how I thought it was. How I've been listening to the damn demo hundreds of times. Because I'll tell you right now, the demo that you're using has been listened to a thousand times.
Facts. Right.
So speaking.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Speaking of while we're on Chris, my favorite, I guess, album work you've done as far as mixing in an album has been Indigo. Probably because I like a lot of my favorite songs on there.
Same.
But
I feel like I hate those mixes. I can't even listen to that shit.
Damn, that's crazy, bro.
Yeah.
We got
You know, but I hear a
questions
lot
for
of
you.
people say that about
I feel like I grow every day.
yes.
Right.
Okay.
And if I grow every day, by the end of the year, I hate my shit.
You're not gonna like what you like on January 1st.
I think we're all like,
Yeah,
I'm
embarrassed,
like where it's like somebody will play a song and it's like, oh, let's play your mix. I'm like,
Play the most recent shit I did like last week. Type shit. Because that's who I am. That's where I am now. And so, as all of us know, like every day we're growing, you're learning new things.
for sure.
It might not necessarily be like, oh, this plugin, that plugin. It might just be like ear training and sonically. You're like, oh fuck, the vocal, I always had it too low and it's supposed to be actually more forward.
Yeah.
Facts.
And so you'll notice like on 1111, the vocals are in your fucking face.
That's a fact. And we're gonna deep dive on that. By the way.
Because I've been mixing so much pop shit, and when I was mixing the pop shit, like with the Industry Baby, I would get notes like turn the vocal up 2 dBs, turn it up, turn it up, turn it up. Like really?
Right.
Because I always wanted the vocal to be like in the track a little bit.
Right.
But I
I'm the
noticed
same
that
way.
with pop shit, they want that shit on top of the track.
up front.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What you
And
saying?
so
Yeah, but how do you? Well, Chris, we know he puts out a lot of music, a high volume. And how do you handle that as far as Cohesion goes, mixing the entire album?
Well, it's it's a double-edged sword because like on one hand, yes, it's the same artist, but on the other hand, as you know, all of Chris's music is so different.
Right.
One has a lot of 808, the other one is like a
ballady,
a pop.
Yeah.
Like remember you know the song Red, or was it Red?
Yeah,
that's that type of record.
Right.
Then
Indigo,
on,
like
and then on 1111 we have the first song, which is acoustic.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
because every song is different, I don't find the need to make every song sound the same. So in some songs you'll hear like his vocal might sound a little bit more forward, and on other ones it's a little more in, and or one song is louder because it doesn't have an 808 with a big kick, and the other one might, and then when it doesn't, it might sound louder or whatever. But I don't really try to say I'm gonna force all these things to sound the same because it's all different. Now with Offset, for example, I had to keep cohesion with things with Baines when we did that together because everything for the most part was in a similar vein, right? But with CB, everything's so fucking different that everything has to live in its own world. With the Nightmare song, if you notice, like the hook is underwater, like kind of like this, but we did it on purpose because he's talking about being in a nightmare and a dream. So I wanted to create like this ethereal, like reverby underwater shit where you kind of were like in a dream type shit. And then when the verses come back, it's back to normal.
And open in front.
Exactly.
Okay,
So everything that I do, especially now more than before, is with intention.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And that's
yeah. There's like this run on that album where it's like Come Together, then it's like Emerald,
Come Together was fire.
It's Red.
Emerald.
Come Together is like my favorite record.
Yeah, no, that was my favorite record when I used to like those mixes.
Yeah,
That was
I
my
used to
favorite.
like those mixes as
Speaking
tears.
of which,
Yeah.
Come Together was produced by an FL guy, right? I say that.
Who was it? It was
Cardiac.
Come Together was Cardiac. Yeah.
Oh,
he's
respect.
amazing.
He produced an NFL?
Yeah.
That's one of y'all?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's one of
Love that
y'all. Like
conversation.
these is old people.
I didn't know that was one of y'all.
Come on, man. So I say that to say,
So I say that to say.
do you notice, like, are there any pointers? 'Cause I remember when we were with Ali, he was like, yeah, when I get a beat from a certain DAW, I'll see it in something.
What do
while
you have a
hearing it in,
tell?
like, a kick. Is there a
Right.
Yeah,
tell?
so I can usually tell in the instrumental because usually when I get a session from someone, the instrumental that they recorded to is there.
Yeah.
And so with FL, that's the one. Like if you were to give me an Ableton and Logic, maybe I wouldn't be able to tell as good. But between FL and other things, you can feel that clipping. That's just like that's FL.
Right.
You know, because that same clipping. I mean, unless there's like a plugin in Ableton, that doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
No.
Like you hear that specifically
You
in
hear
FL.
it, and so what I need to do, and I was telling you guys earlier about this plugin that Ryan Schwab makes called Gold Clip.
Oh, yeah.
So Gold Clip is the
man.
way that I'm sort of able to recreate a little bit of it because when they print the stems out, like when they print the 2-track to record to, all of the shit is going through and everything's getting clipped. The hi-hats, the open hats, you can hear how it's like breaking apart.
Right.
So what I need to do is I'll take my drum bus and I'll put the Gold Clip on there and slam it and try to recreate that feeling because although some would consider it wrong that it's distorting, if it doesn't sound like the demo, it doesn't feel like the demo, the producer's already not gonna like it if it's not clipping.
For sure.
And the artist is gonna say it doesn't feel the same. Even though they're not saying, oh, it's not clipping, the artist doesn't necessarily know what's happening, but they feel
that.
it.
They know.
feel
They-
the
they
difference.
pick up on it.
They're
They
not
feel
gonna
the
tell you what it is.
No.
Because they're not gonna know, but the producer will. And he'll be like, it's not clipping the same way that my FL is. So you kind of have to recreate it. So, and it's been difficult in the past before this Swab one to find something like there's the T-Rex clipper.
Yes.
But to me, it didn't sound the same as
doesn't.
the FL.
No. Yeah. I would say, sorry to cut you off.
What's the closest one do you think?
Oh, for me personally, I'll be honest with you. Knock from Decap.
Okay. Fire.
I'm gonna try that shit.
Knock is
I'm
so
serious
dope.
because
No, I know, I'm gonna try it.
I go back and forth with the drum bus with the Gold Clip or the drum.
Yeah, it just depends on what you're looking for too, because
Yeah.
every record is different. That's why a lot of people say like, "Oh, what do you do with your hi-hats?" It's like, on what song?
Yeah, facts.
right?
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
every song is different.
Every
I've
song
seen
is
you
different.
compress hi hats too, like on some of your mixes. I've seen you actually like do some.
Yeah, you got to
compression,
compress
stuff
and
like that.
EQ the fuck out of it because you know when you get those hi-hats, they're like,
Yeah,
and it's just
right.
like,
jarring
bro, I
to
can't
your
listen
ears.
to that.
What do you like for you? Like, say for instance, you have a hi hat like that.
That's crazy.
What are you doing to it? Like,
So
what
it's
are
a
you
combination of EQing it out, but you can't just like put all the pressure on the EQ to do it. So I'll put the soothe on there, and that's sort of like a multi-band compression, and it's a little bit everything. You just dial it. Like it's not about being like, oh, the number's this. That just feel it.
Right.
What is it? What is the feeling telling you?
Right.
Yeah.
Like
Wow.
you got to throw the numbers out of the window. At some point.
For sure.
What is the feeling telling you?
Yeah, because you're big. He's really big on that. You know,
Yeah.
one time. Oh, go ahead. What you gonna say?
That brings me to like, oh damn, it just skipped my mind like in real time.
Well, I got.
Oh no, yeah.
Okay.
So this is a weird question.
Okay.
Forgive this question because I feel like you're gonna be like,
Forgive this
forgive me
question.
for
But
this question.
what is that?
What is the biggest change in your workflow from like GOAT with Eric all the way to Sensational or something like that?
I mean,
what's the one
I
thing
didn't
that
even
you've
have
touched
my
on to the
mix
process?
structure the way I do now as far as my template and gain staging for the mixing. It's like totally different. Like back then I was more winging it. Like I wasn't thinking about levels. I wasn't going, oh, how loud is this printing at? Like I wasn't really thinking about that. I was just doing it. Eric was on board with it. Like we was just all learning process, right? Like I didn't really start getting into the whole gain staging and doing things the way I feel is correct until probably Breezy, like after end of Indigo going into Breezy. That's when I really started to like think about the whole structure and infrastructure of my template.
Right.
And then from there was able to like kind of throw some stuff out for feeling and kind of like, you know what I mean? But in the beginning it was all feeling. I wasn't even caring. Like I may have mixed that song on it with a 2-track type of thing, which I don't do anymore. I like if someone comes with me with a 2-track, I mean, unless it's like a really big artist that's like, yo, the producer lost the files.
Right.
I'm not gonna mix it because it's not going to really show what I can do without the track out. And I don't want people to be like, yeah, Teezio mixed this. Right. And it's like it's a 2-track and I didn't have control of the snare and the hat and the kick. Yeah. And so now people are like, oh, that's his mix?
Right.
Man.
You know what I mean? It doesn't sound like the other shit he's doing.
Do you feel like your 2-track mix is like they have a lack of fidelity, like
100%.
separation? Like it just
100%.
I always feel like it feels so like I can literally hear sometime when I feel like, oh, this was on a 2-track, because I feel such a disconnect.
Well, you can tell by certain stuff, unless the person is like just not mixing how you think they should. Like usually what'll happen is the kick will be squashed.
Yes.
Right. And you won't, smash, and you can't really do anything about that. You can like transient design, well, all this stuff, but it's not the real thing.
Right. Yeah.
The snare will be way too fucking loud.
Yeah.
Right.
The hats will be way too loud.
Right.
The music is too low sometimes.
Right.
And it's because the producer is like, that 2-track mix, the producer, it's 4 a.m, he's making that beat.
Right.
He's bouncing it and sending it like he's been listening to music all day, he's fried.
Right.
You know, so like you're getting that, and that's now your starting point.
Right.
At least he
You know what I mean?
understands, man. He understands us.
Who understands you?
He means stop
Teezio,
doing it.
man.
Yeah, but he wants you to stop.
Well, here's the deal.
That's what he's trying to tell you.
you.
He's like, you
Next
guys
time-
need to stop.
Next time you get a little 2-track mix, man, slide it to FL, get you a stem separator.
That's nasty.
I
And
do,
you know what? You know that's probably
with
why
AI,
they
you
gave
could
them.
probably do it
They
now.
probably did. What you gonna say? That's probably why they gave him stem
I was going to
separation.
say on that tidbit of separating or finding that separation between the 2-track and the vocals that you are tracking. I did want to ask a couple questions on this topic actually, but really first, and I'll start by saying my personal favorite record on Indigo was "Don't Check on Me."
Oh,
I love that record.
Yeah, that'd be right.
What
that
was-
actually was this Goodwin mixed that with me. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Josh. Oh,
Yeah, because
okay.
Josh mixes all the Bieber shit.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that goes across the board. If Chris is on a feature,
Right.
if I didn't mix the whole record, I at least mix Chris's vocal.
Oh,
Right.
wow. Okay.
You know what I
got
mean?
you.
Because we have to keep things
Cohesive.
as
Right.
far as who the artist is. Like with
Right.
Bieber, he has to sound like Bieber all the time. If I get it and I'm like, well, I don't know, but I'm going to thin him out because that's not how he's supposed to sound. They're going to be like, oh, he sounds different on that.
Right.
So usually the engineer if the artist has their own engineer, he'll be the one to mix at least the vocal for the feature.
Gotcha.
Just
Is
to
that
keep it in case.
Okay.
Chris's features as well, like the Danny Lay record or some shit.
So the Danny Lay one, I mixed, I think, just him, and then I send. Now, after I send his vocal, they can do
Whatever they want.
Yeah,
Right.
they can
Yeah.
still EQ the acapella
Right.
or
Right.
whatever. So it's like
Right.
it's sometimes out of my control, but we still like to get it back for approval.
Right. And
You
just
know
see
what I
what they
mean?
say
Yeah,
and stuff
like,
like that.
For the
Right.
most part, like if it sounds pretty decent, you're not gonna fight it too much
Yeah.
because you already know there's a lot of moving parts when you're putting out a record with a feature. There's label clearances, there's publishing, there's payment, there's videos, there's a lot of moving parts. So you don't want to be the one that's like, this isn't coming out, it doesn't sound right. Like, bro, we got a lot of other problems
to
worry
deal
about
with
right
and shit
now,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah, what you gonna say, Courtney? You said you had the question.
The other one was so then in the process when it came to Industry Baby, specifically records like Industry Baby and even Already Best Friends.
Yes.
What is that process like? Like kind of just like matching the vibe in terms of keeping the vibe of the record itself consistent when it comes to Chris and another artist featuring, or when you're mixing one artist predominantly on the record and it's a feature. What is that like? Just kind of matching the vibes to make sure the record seems consistent.
For example, on the Sierra record, when the one that just how we wrote
Yep.
that record. So when I got it, I think Jason mixed the main part of the record, and I just mixed Chris.
Okay.
I didn't want to have Chris sounding totally bright and clean like I normally would,
regularly.
because then it would just sound like Sierra's in this world, and then Chris is just in another world.
Right.
So sometimes you do have to kind of give, but it's a compromise, right? So it's like if I usually thin out Chris this much and I had this much brightness, maybe I'll just do a little less, just so he sits in the track a little better with the other artists.
Right.
With Industry Baby, I got Jack's vocal came as a 2-track from Nikki.
Okay.
As you guys know,
Shout out
Nikki's his
Nikki.
engineer and
Yeah.
mixes all his stuff.
Yeah.
And so when I mixed it, obviously I was following the demo. And what I do to follow the demo to keep it the same is as I'm mixing, like I do this. I know a lot of people mix in different ways. This is an opinion, subjective.
Yeah, he's good. He
But
does
I
this.
mute everything.
Okay.
And I bring the kick in and I get it sitting
Right.
volume wise and punchiness and where I want it. Once I get the snare in, I go right to the demo and I go, where is the snare in comparison to the kick?
That's exactly.
So then I put
right.
the snare there. And then next sound, hi-hat, unmute it, go back to the demo. Where's the hi-hat in comparison to the snare and the
Right,
kick? And
right.
that goes, until I'm saying, where's the music in comparison to the bass, in comparison to the hi-hat, in comparison to the snare?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I go all the way through so that by the time I'm done with it, it's going to punch harder, it's going to be louder, but it's going to be the same record.
Same record. It's
Yeah.
from the from
snare might be a
level.
little loud on the demo. I
Sure.
have it a little lower, but it sounds the same.
Right,
You know,
right.
the blend of 2 snares together, like we were talking about earlier.
Right.
If they send me 2 snares that are on top of each other, I'm not going to treat those snares separately because they're technically one snare, right?
sound. That's the
so
sound.
I'll put those 2 snares through a bus, and that bus becomes the snare.
Right.
And so, because once you fuck with the blend, that's where things get dangerous.
Right.
The producer's like, oh, the snare doesn't sound the same. And then you're like, fuck, I already fucked the blend up between the two. Like, where do I
Right.
go?
Where do I go? Right.
Yeah,
You
and
gotta
there's a
start over.
million different options that can happen to create
Right.
that one thing that he did at 4 a.m,
Right.
high as fuck. He didn't blend it in a certain way where if you fuck with that, it
really
bumps with-
disruptive.
and everyone is like, and because people have heard it, so I'm hearing the demo for the 3rd time.
Right.
These people
right.
are hearing the demo for the millionth
Million
time,
times. And they can hear the smallest
the
changes.
smallest shit.
Right.
Even set when we were doing his album, he could hear the smallest
Thing
shit.
going
Where I was
on.
like, oh, I didn't even hear that.
Right.
Because he's listened to the shit so fucking much.
So he can pick up on those types of things.
exactly.
Speaking of that record, right? I'd like to know if it was like, was it crack that you put in that mix, right?
Which one?
On that Jack Harlow and and Industry Baby.
Oh, Industry Baby.
Yeah, that was
God.
hitting.
There was a
that
lot
joint
of
is just-
That was his record, dog.
That's
That
my
was
favorite.
Day
That's my
Tripping.
favorite
That
record of
was Day
2022.
Tripping, yeah.
It was
That
Day
was
Trip?
so
Yeah.
fire.
Bro,
Kanye.
the funny story is they said, they're like, oh, can you mix this record for Lil Nas X? I was like, bet. So they send me a file. The file is 15 gigs. So I'm going, damn, I got the whole album. I got the whole
This is one
fucking
record
album.
to you?
Yeah, so then I open it, it's one song, it's Industry Baby.
Right.
There's probably like, and shout out Day Trip, there's probably 150 to 200 tracks of just horns.
Of just horns?
Just because there's like sections where like over here there'll be 10 stacks of horns, and then in the hook there'll be like 20 stacks of horns, and then over here there's another, and there's layers, and there's harmonies, and there's all this
Right.
shit. So there were so many
Right.
that I had to, and again, going back to the blend thing, where stuff was on top of each other, I worked with it as a whole.
Right.
And another thing too is when I got Industry Baby, if you listen to the demo versus my mix, you're not gonna be like, oh my God, it's worlds away. It sounds very close to the demo because Day Trip are on their fucking shit.
That's a fact.
They're so good at getting shit to sound good that by the time I get it, I need to get it to sound like that and just a little bit better.
Right.
And they can tell. They'll be like, oh, that's fire. And I'm like, well, it's the vocals are a little bit clearer, a little bit here. It's just tiny details.
Right.
But a lot of times people overthink it and be like, okay, well, it sounds like this. I got to make it sound 10 times better.
Right.
Sometimes you can't. Sometimes that shit's already hitting,
Right.
sounding good. I just need to recreate what they have and make it a little bit better.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And you like to start with that kind of like that fader mix and kind of get things level from with the demo.
No.
and kind of
I
like do it,
literally
or-
kick all the plugins that I'm going to put on the kick, then the snare, and then obviously I may go back and be like, oh, the snare's too bright. Let me bring some down.
Okay,
But
got
I don't
you.
like do like the old school. I don't. Okay, so the mix window.
Right.
I don't know what that is.
I've seen you.
I
I've
don't
heard you say
use
that.
that shit at all.
Right.
Because I started everything in my world was very visual with Pro Tools, and so when I go from the edit window to the mix window, I'm completely lost. I don't know what section we're in. I don't know what track is playing. Nothing.
I get you.
I do
Okay.
everything in the edit window.
Right.
Everything you can do in the mix window is in the edit window.
In the edit window, yeah.
Because I'm always I look at the vocal, I highlight, I'm looping as I'm looking, and I'm seeing the section. I can see the waveform. I can
Right.
see if there's a breath. I can see if there's everything. I can visually see
Right.
everything.
Right.
So I became kind of visual with that stuff. And so when I make this joke that when I accidentally hit Apple Plus and like the
Yeah, the
mix
mix window
one,
comes-
I'm like, oh shit, where the fuck fuck am I? You know what I mean?
You get lost. Like, what the fuck
I
am
get
I?
lost. Yeah.
Yo, Zaya, make sure you put mixed window hitting Teezio in the face on the edit, bro.
definitely.
Please make sure. There's one thing about that. Ironically, we were talking about a kick and stuff like that. And I seen you one time. You were EQing a kick. And
Yes.
I seen you identifying it with the Fat Filter Pro Q3.
Yeah.
You were identifying resonant frequencies within the kick, and you were like, "That's a problem. That's a problem." What the person that was talking to you didn't ask, and I was like, please ask him, was how you were determining, hey, I think that's an issue. I think that's an issue from a visual standpoint. I seen you catching like the peak or the resonant frequencies.
Yeah, where you see it. So I use a combination of my ears and visual because the thing is with just your ears and no visual, it's gonna take you a little longer to figure out. You got to sweep a lot. Imagine your eyes are closed, you're like sweeping and sweeping.
Right.
If you just look, you can fucking see right there is the fucking problem. Right. Let me check it with my ears by pulling up on the thing. Oh yeah, that's an issue, and you'll hear like the boom boom, like the weird shit.
Right.
So like what you'll notice is as I'm cutting those things, it's actually accentuating the good shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's the whole point of it is to like take out stuff that maybe in the way of exactly
of the clean stuff. So because I saw you taking pretty much because you know how in Fat Filter Pro Q3 when it's analyzing it and you go underneath, it's like a weird spot you got to hover over and it gives you
you click down at the bottom and then it'll turn blue. So
it hovers, and you were basically attacking the frequencies that it was highlighting.
Yeah, and I'm also verifying with my ears that is what's bothering me because there may be a frequency that's poking up and I check it and I'm like it's not bad.
Right.
You know what I mean? But then I find another one I'm like okay that's an issue. It sounds like a resonant frequency, so I'll pull it out.
Right.
Anytime I'm pulling stuff out, it's accentuating everything I'm not pulling out.
Right.
It's like the equal and opposite effect type shit.
Got you. You're getting more of the good because you're taking out more like that.
And that goes into the vocal mixing. Like people will be like, oh, the vocal needs to be brighter. My first instinct isn't to go add high end. My first instinct is to say, if it needs to be brighter, is there something in the low end that's causing the high end to be not accentuated?
Yes. Right.
You know, so because I'd rather take away than add. Once you start adding, you're adding volume. You're adding all to the mix bus.
Right.
So I always take away and then it's better that way.
Right.
You know what I mean? For me.
Speaking of taking away stuff, let's play a game.
Simple is better.
Called One Gotta Go.
One gotta go.
Yeah,
Return.
100%.
Let's go.
All right. I'm gonna just give you choices.
Oh, fuck.
Pick.
Oh fuck.
Here's what it is. First off, 2A versus the 76.
LA 2A versus 76 for cutting vocals. For anything. I'll use a 76. I love the LA 2A, but it's not as versatile.
Got you.
I have the attack and release with the 1176, and sometimes I need versatile. But I love the LA 2A too.
Got you. Okay.
Finally on the scoreboard. I'm Team 76.
I'm me too. And I have a 2A at home, but I'm still 76.
It's Team 76.
It's fast. I like how fast it is.
Oh, new Autotune versus Evo Autotune.
Oh my God.
Don't even.
I knew it. Yo, because you know why?
It's really the. I'm not even gonna say too much, but it's like I get a lot of crashes and pops and clicks, and then I just rather use the old shit.
I hear, and with Chris, I always feel like that was a sound. Like that Autotune had a certain sound. Like Autotune 5 is a preset in the new Autotune.
Yeah, you could put the classic mode.
Yeah,
and I do that. That actually gets rid of some of the pops and clicks. Putting it in classic mode.
Right.
The algorithm is just better.
Right.
I don't know. I like it better. It's not that I'm like an old school guy. It's just like I have less issues with that. And when there's less issues with one thing, that means less issues in my fucking life.
What Autotune are you gravitate to? Which one?
I really love, and I don't think it exists anymore to be able to actually use is Autotune Live. Like live, not the new live.
Not
like
the new live?
Live, where it said Autotune Live at the top and it was like the old screen.
Oh, wow.
I love that shit. It's just super, no latency.
Oh my God.
No latency, nothing. Because the thing is like, like all the GUIs being all cute and nice, like that's fun. Right. But when you're in the room and your adrenaline is rushing, I don't got time for the cute shit.
I need to get it done.
Give me the raw shit so I can get this job done because the guy in the booth is not going to care about, the new GUI causes a lot. Fuck that. Get this shit recorded because I'm about to lose my vibe.
Right.
He knows what he's
So, you know what I mean?
We always
I used
that.
I used to have that one cracked,
it's not that there's bad things. There's great things you can do with the new Autotune. Like the format, that stuff didn't exist before.
Right.
That stuff is awesome. But in the heat of the moment, cutting a vocal, just that, the old one is better.
Wow.
For me.
For you. Yeah, right. For you, for right now. I always wanted to know that with his Autotune. Like which one you like.
Yeah, but now we have to use because of the whole license, the way it works, you kind of have to be on the new one, and I just deal with it the way I can deal with it. Luckily, I'm not recording in it, I'm just mixing, so I don't have someone in the booth pressuring me with the recording process. Like if something fucks up, restart the computer. It's just me and my assistant in there. I'm not tripping.
Yeah.
Right.
When you real quick, I'm so sorry. When you do record track via just your auto-tune just for the tracking session, are there times in the mixing session where you're just like, all right, I'm gonna take this acapella, I have the original auto-tune burnt in, but now I'm gonna bring it over here and maybe throw on pro and like, you know, pitch correct a little bit additionally
With the auto tune that I printed already on there.
Yeah. Are there times you do that?
No, I've melodyned. I'll
interesting.
melodyne stuff. People always say like, oh, you can't melodyne if there's auto tune.
I've done that.
I've done that.
Especially
done
with
it.
Pro Tools. Are you using the new like the RA?
I have used it, but for the past, I've always done the plugin.
You've had the plugin.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
But I know that with the new one, it's been better than the track, which is
Yeah.
awesome. That's a
Right.
great feature.
Heck yeah.
But I like Melodyne because I think when I started to really use Melodyne, it was at a point where all the big guys, there was just Melodyne engineers. Like at one point, there was
That's
guys
true.
that only got paid to
do
Melodyne.
to pitch correct. That's true.
That's it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they still exist
I hope
because of where we're at with I don't- where we're at with shit. But
Right.
at one point, there was a guy like he would get paid $1,500 to fucking
Melodyne.
some shit.
That's
and he'd
crazy.
be there melodyne backgrounds back, and that would tweak me out.
That would
I'll
lose
be
my
honest.
mind.
Yeah,
Just,
I had
yeah, you know the
Yeah,
sound when you hit a tight like note. It's like
yeah. And my wife will be in the other room, and she'll be like, "Oh, you're melodyning, aren't you?" Because she's like, she's like, "Man, stop that shit."
That shit is hard. That shit is annoying. I feel you.
I ain't gonna lie though. No, I had a. That was necessary because I had a professor that when he taught us melodyning. Shout out Mr. Cooper.
Shout out
He was
Cooper.
nice,
Shout out
bro.
Coops.
Yeah, Cooper was nice.
He was nice with the melodyne.
Yeah, he was.
There was this girl in our class, man. I used to record her because he used to put us in groups. She could not sing, but he took her vocal, man.
And he made it work.
He
She
made it
sounded
work.
like
That's
she sounded
crazy.
like Celine Dion or Whitney Houston.
Damn, Celine. God
That's
damn.
some work.
Celine,
That's some
Yo,
Melodyne.
that's heavy. What's next?
Maybe Katy Perry, but
All right.
big studios versus intimate studios.
For the recording process, I do like the bigger studios because I have more space. For the mixing, I don't like bigger. I like intimate. Like my house is like a 10 by 15 room, 10 by 15. It's small.
Right.
I like a least amount of stuff in there. I'm like a simple guy. I don't like a lot of shit. I'm not a gearhead. Like that's why me and Baines are like complete opposites. He's a gearhead.
He is. I seen his room.
And like
yeah.
gear overwhelms me because recalls and this and like again when I'm dealing with can you do these notes? Can you do this? We got to deliver this today. Like I'm overwhelmed, right? So it's like fuck, I forgot to do this and I just sent it off to mastering and I didn't do the recall on this and it's like you lose your mind on that shit. So I keep my shit as simple as possible because when you're driving at 200 miles an hour, you need the least amount of weight.
Right.
Kinda like when you're
I
in
get
a car.
that. That was a bar. Can I please ask him something? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Dude, so you use, and you're a user of the APB.
Yes.
Let me say this. The way people don't talk about it just blows my mind. Because it took me so long to even understand what the heck he created.
Yeah.
Like when I first was looking it up, I remember it came across my page and I seen you, Baines, both of y'all were talking about it. And I was like, wait, what? And I remember, and just for anybody that's trying to understand, basically it's like a way to have the power of digital and analog because you're getting hardware, circuitry and all kind of stuff like that analog, but you're able to recall it with plugins that control everything. To me, that's still the most...
It's tough.
Like
and there's other
mind-blowing.
companies that have that now, like
Right.
Better Maker has it now and stuff like that.
Yeah, I seen that limited. Yeah, I seen it doing that.
But for example, with that, like I don't use that on every like it's it's a finishing plugin for me. So after I've mixed the record and I feel like okay, the vocals just kind of popping out a little bit, I'll go on my vocal bus and I'll put it on and I'll get like a half a dB, maybe a dB of reduction.
Okay.
It's just a finisher for me. It's not like I have that on every fucking vocal.
Got you.
You know?
I seen you was talking about I don't know if it's the chicken head one?
Chicken head's the one that I use the most.
Okay.
I really don't use and the L Mu. I'll put that on the bass and it just like saturates it a little bit.
Got you. You like the
but
sound
the
of it.
chicken head is the one that sets my vocals in because all of us kind of gravitate towards a plugin for a certain reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what I love it for, and that's what works for me. For you might be like, man, on guitars that shit's lit. I don't use it on guitars.
Right.
Everyone has it's a bias. to that,
Right. So chicken head kind of give you like that finishing touch on the vocal. You feel like just a
yeah,
little glue,
vocal,
little
glue.
sitting like kind of thing.
Exactly, to sit in. Because sometimes the vocal, after all the stuff you've done, will still kind of pop out a little bit.
Yeah.
So you kind of sit it in a little bit with that.
Got you.
But I love that plugin for that.
Yeah, I remember I seen you bring it up, and I was just so interested, and I was like, "How are you using it?" Because you brought up chicken head, and I heard you bring up the Mu too, and I was wondering how you're using it because I was like, obviously I don't have access to it because it's in the APB.
Yes.
So I was just like, "Damn!" Like I've seen you and Baines use APB plugins.
Yeah.
I remember it broke my heart because I remember looking up. He was using some EQ. It's like a mid-side EQ. It's blue and yellow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the mastering EQ that they make.
And he did a few moves, and I was like,
Baines loves that shit though.
Yeah, he used it on everything.
That's
I
the
seen them, yeah.
That's the amazing thing about this is like me and Baines are like best friends, and it's like we have completely different styles of mixing.
Wow, right.
Like we mix Offset's album,
right,
and you can kind of tell between like you'll hear like a record that I mix, like the vocal might sound a little clearer, and on the vocal that he did or on the record that he did, it might sound a little dirtier.
Interesting.
But it's a very little because we still kind of have our own ways of doing it, but we had to come together,
compromise,
compromise. Yeah, exactly, because we still had to be on the same damn project.
Yeah, that's a fact.
You know what I mean?
It's the same project. Facts.
And it's all about compromising with this shit. From the demo to the collaborations, it's all about compromise because not one person knows everything.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
That shit is crazy.
Just out of curiosity, what are your near field choices?
For speakers?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
It's the PMCs, man.
I use the 6.2s. Those are my favorite.
Right.
Yeah, the 6.2s.
The 6.2s, yeah.
Yeah, those are my favorite speakers. And I literally, like, I'll be in another studio and be like, oh, listen to this. And I'll be like, oh, it sounds dope in here.
Right.
But I won't really know if there's any issues until I go to my room.
Got you, right.
And the other thing is the room, too. Because Tucci has the 6.2s in his studio, but his apartment has cement floors. My house, because it's a house in San Fernando Valley where I live, it's in suburb of LA.
Right.
Most of the houses there are built with crawl spaces underneath.
Okay.
So there's a 3 foot, that's not 3 feet.
Gap.
There's like a 3 foot gap where the piping and shit like that. So my studio is floated on wood floors.
Right.
So that low end booms through the house.
Wow.
To the point where like if I put like partition on from a Beyonce, it's like, boo.
Wow.
Bro, in the bass really is the loudest like in the kitchen.
Wow.
That's where the shit, everything is just shaking in there because the whole house is floated.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like for my room, the PMCs are perfect. When I go to Tucci's studio, I can't really listen to the PMCs.
And are you still using a sub with your PMCs?
I don't use a sub.
You don't.
I don't need a sub.
That throws me off.
Yeah, no, because the thing is, again, what does it need? Not what do you want?
Got you. Okay.
You know what I mean? Because we all want a sub.
Sure.
I want the sub. I want that shit to bang.
Right.
But if your room is giving you the response that you need, first of all, don't spend the money on something you don't need.
Right.
Exactly. So it's like, for me, the room was to the point where my low end on those speakers is down 4 or 5 dBs.
Wow.
If I put it at 0, it's unlistenable.
Right. It's a wrap.
Because the whole house resonates the bass so much.
Right.
You know, now I'm actually scared to move out of my house. And I'm thinking, like, if I move to a house, I got to make sure the floor is floated.
Oh, man.
Because in Tucci's studio, for example, that low end does not pass through the floor. It doesn't give you the same response that it does in my room.
Interesting.
So although I use PMCs, to be honest, a lot of it is also my room.
Right.
It's like a 50-50 split between the two. Like my speakers don't sound good in every room. They sound good in my room.
Right.
And so I love that.
Right.
But if I hear it somewhere else, I may not love it.
Right.
You know, I might want a different set of speakers.
That too. And you got to learn, like, you got to relearn the room.
Committing a fucking sin. But yeah.
I feel you. And I'm
learning
scared
the
depth
room
of
is
that.
everything. Because like people will be like, oh, this room needs to be like, the walls can't line up. And fuck that. Does it sound good or not?
Right.
You know, and if it doesn't, put some treatment up, figure it out, have someone come in there and clap around.
I figured out. I learned my lesson one time, and shout out to Depp and Demetrius at $1 Million Snare.
Yeah.
I remember I was at their studio recently, and that video is coming soon, by the way. I did a tour of their studio and stuff like that in SAC, and I remember I was like, let me. You know, obviously I was in the room, I'm enamored. I'm like, wow, this is fucking amazing. And they had these Tyler acoustic speakers, really tall, like monitors. And I remember he was like, oh, you want to play a mix? And I was like, yeah, I think I do. So I said,
nervous on how it was gonna sound.
Oh my God, was I nervous? I was like, I know I'm gonna hear all the mistakes, all the problems. Cause that room is I really like the sound of that room.
Sounded,
I loved how it sounded. Cause we played other records. I played like the common records that I just know, like that tell me.
The records that you know from being growing up and shit.
Yeah, I'll play Players, which I need to talk to you about.
We can talk about Players.
It's just a bunch of those records. So I played my record, and immediately I was like, stop the record. I heard it. Like I heard all my mistakes. I was
immediately.
Hell yeah. But I told them, and I was serious. I was like, yo, this is a test mix because I'm trying to see. I was fighting with this mix in my room because I just rebuilt my studio. So I was like, I'm fighting with this mix. Play this. Then I played another mix, and it was great in that room. And I was like, oh, okay. And I took that mix and said, here's my rubric.
Exactly.
Here's my standard.
You
I know.
need a point of reference.
Yes.
If you don't have a reference point, there's no way. You're in space. You're floating in space. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. I don't know shit.
You know what else we need?
What we need?
I think we need audio engineers, MTV Cribs. Because the way he was talking about his room, I'm like,
and my wife got my house looking fire. 'Cause I got clients coming over, so I gotta have I got my plaques up. We got the nice decorations everywhere. We got some art pieces and shit like that. So like when you go in my house, like you're like, damn, this is fire.
This is fire. Like it's fly and shit like that.
Yeah, because you don't want people to come over there and they're, they've already put you like, oh, this is this mixer, like da da da, and you go in there, it's a fucking rat's nest.
And you're like, oh my bad, walk over there.
Like when you go in my shit, like there's not mail on the table and cups out. Like everything is clean, and that's my wife keep it clean. We got the Roomba.
Facts. That's
10
good.
times a day. That bitch always going. Sometimes I trip over like, damn, bitch, you're always in the way.
I couldn't find one for Black Friday, by the way. I was trying to get one.
You gotta get the shark one. That's the best
shark
one.
one?
The shark
Okay,
one is the
because there's so many. I was scared. I didn't know. Shark?
That's the best
Say
one.
less.
Trust me.
Thank you. I appreciate
I'm on
it.
my second shark. The first one killed himself because the first one wasn't that smart. Now it's smarter. This motherfucker would drive over anything and fuck himself up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotta get one. I'm trying to get one now.
My appliance nerds. Nah, coming soon. To
My
the
appliance nerds. Let's get it.
coming soon to the
Sure.
Audio Nerds Network. The MTV Cribs, the audio cribs.
I'll
it's
be
over.
so dead. You do that.
It's
you,
lit.
you had a question for him? Because I gotta.
I'm
I'm
still,
gonna ask
we
him.
Still on one gotta go.
Because I still gotta ask him the question that I brought, like literally brought him.
When I
here
went to
for.
the
we got two.
Got it.
Let's
Yeah,
end
yeah.
it with that because I think.
Go ahead.
That's
Do you
gonna
think?
be a nice
Yeah,
combo.
do you think?
One gotta go.
Okay.
Waves, Isotope, Acoustica.
Waves, Isotope, Acoustica. Now, no fucking shade, 'cause I love Acoustica, but I use Waves and Isotope way more than Acoustica.
True.
Acoustica is amazing.
Yeah.
The issue that I was finding is obviously power.
Oh my god.
What I say, it's
bro,
the same. It's the
Bro,
same.
when I
report
use
around the
Acoustica,
block.
I'm not like, if I put an EQ on a vocal, right? I can't put 30 Acousticas on a session.
Yeah, no.
So I kind of use it sparingly.
Right.
You know, and because I use it sparingly, I find myself using more Waves and Isotope.
Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
I could live without acoustic. I can't live without Isotope, especially
Yeah.
because you're talking about Neutron 3, you're talking about
Told you.
the Neutron compressor.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I fight with him on that because he laughed at me. We did like a one gotta go with Waves. I think it was Waves and Isotope. Or we had to pick like our trifecta.
Oh yeah, pick our
It was like Fat Filter, Isotope, Waves. Long story short, I put Isotope at the front, and they were like, "What?" I was like, "Fam, I'm telling you, what Isotope offers me, I can't find anywhere else."
Yes.
You know what I mean? I keep telling them that.
Those
like, I
three you just named, Fab Filter, Waves, and Isotope, are
The co-
the
like-
most used plugins that I use because I'm simple with shit.
Yeah.
People
I-
just do too much and they overthink too much and like, oh, I saw this guy use this plugin. Yeah, well, he was using it on that song.
Right.
That's not this song.
Right.
So that's the big mistake that people make is they see someone use something on one thing and they think that applies to everything.
Everything
everything.
else, right.
And it's not. I use the Soothe differently for different songs and I use the R comp different ratios for different songs.
Right,
It's not just one ratio works for everything because it doesn't.
I mean, since y'all want to talk for real, then for both of y'all, Waves or Isotope, man. One gotta go.
One gotta go.
One gotta go. Okay. Oh fuck. Okay. If I can keep Fab Filter because we're not talking about Fab Filter,
That's a
we can
fact.
get rid of
Facts.
Waves
Copy.
because I can do with Fab Filter and Neutron and Isotope.
Yeah, right. Because I feel like I got my EQ. I
Yeah.
got Pro Q3. I am good. Like I'm so good.
And
at an
C2,
EQ.
the C2 compressor. Do not sleep on that shit.
A lot of people do.
I use it on pretty much every track has a C2 on there. If I'm
Interesting.
compressing or the R comp, if I'll switch it up because sometimes I'll be like, man. Am I just using this plugin too much? I'll just use the R comp really quick.
Right.
But
Just
if
to
I
break it
could,
up.
I would just use the C2
like,
on
fuck that.
everything. Yeah, because
That's
it's so
crazy.
versatile.
Right. Yeah.
It's so versatile.
Yeah, I like that you can, it's the one compressor. I like that you can change the modes. Like you can
Yes.
like vocal mode or like, cause he put me onto it a while ago and he wasn't the biggest fan.
I'm
He
not.
always was like, I'm not the biggest fan.
Hey,
of C2.
listen, but y'all
I've
about to
used
see
it and
it.
I liked it.
I'm about
It
to say
just
y'all
used-
about to see it in 4K. Teezio just said that a lot of the records be having the Pro C on it. Your boy might
like
have
the
to.
the last compressor on all of Chris' vocals is C2.
Is the Pro
Is a
C.
C2.
It's that last one doing 4 or 5 dBs of compression.
Right.
What-
to
I-
keep it-
But it doesn't sound squash. If you listen to Chris'
Exactly.
vocals, they sound
Right.
dynamic.
It does.
But I'm doing 4 to 5 dBs of compression on some records.
Interesting.
Which I was about to ask you then, if that's the case, what algorithm on the Pro C are you using?
To be honest, I just leave whatever the fuck.
Really?
That's hard.
You just load it
Whatever.
up?
I don't change too much. Like
Right.
there'll
I
be
feel you.
occasionally where I'm like, oh, put the punch on there or whatever. But
Yeah.
like for the most part, I'm pretty like basic with shit.
Interesting.
Like I'll change the ratio, I'll change the attack and the
Yeah.
release, and I'll change the threshold. But for the most part, like I don't really mess. If I need to mess with it, I'll know because it's telling me,
Hey.
I need to mess with this. But if it's
Right.
not, then why go out of your way to overthink shit? Oh, well, I saw this guy, he messes with all this stuff, so I need to mess with all this. Like
Right.
what he does doesn't mean you have to be yourself.
Right.
Be your damn self.
Yeah,
Come on,
facts.
nah. We gotta say it again.
Spitting.
Be yourself.
Be your damn self. You know,
Oh, my fault.
got you.
ahead,
I just want to just keep on
Wait,
that.
wait.
One thing, CO1B, right?
Yes, the outboard.
The outboard,
Okay.
right? I've seen you put or use a slower release for vocals.
Yes.
That's interesting to me because your vocals to me feel like they are more open and kind of that compression is kind of releasing and stuff like that. But I don't know if
actually I don't do that. I do the attack. I do slow,
right?
Because the COMB is very fast. If you leave it on all the way to the left,
right,
that shit snaps
it's
on everything.
Right.
So I actually put the attack on like 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Which is like not it's slower, but it's still reacting.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because the thing is with outboard compression, you make a mistake there, you're fucked.
Right. It's
you know, because oh man, I was compressing too much. Can you do it over? He's like, no, I can't.
Yeah.
That's the take. And then you're like, fuck. So I always do two on the ratio.
Okay.
I do very low ratios. I don't do the 4 dB ratio I do in the 4-to-1 I do in Pro Tools.
Right.
Yeah.
But for recording 2-to-1.
Right.
And I'll get my compression, but if anything, I'll say this needs more compression because you can't go back.
Right.
And that's my thing is I never want to put myself in a position where I fucked up.
Right.
And this vocal sounds squashed. And
And
then
now you
after
can't
I've
change it.
adjusted it and now the rest sounds different.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, that's where you really fuck yourself with stuff.
With your Pro C2 at the end, what is your, I know you're doing like a slower attack and stuff like that, but with that release, is it like medium or slow? I know, of course, it's case by case with each
It's
song.
case by case, but it's
Right.
roughly medium on both. Yeah,
Got
yeah.
you. So it's really like a glue kind of holding things
Yeah.
there. Okay. I always wanted to know that because I'll be honest with you, when I listen to your vocals, it always throws me off because it sits so like, I'm right here in front of you, it stands there, but it's also still, I feel those quiet and loud dynamics.
Yeah.
So with that being said, with the compression and stuff like that, are you doing any parallel compression?
I don't. Okay, so here's another
That's
fucking
crazy.
hot
Yo,
topic.
I like you, man.
I don't. Okay,
I love
the
this.
only parallel stuff I do
Yeah.
is like, let's say I have an 808 and I want it to have like that buzz, right?
Yeah.
So I'll copy the 808, I'll squash the shit out of it, I'll EQ the low end out, and I'll put a distortion plugin on, and I'll parallel that underneath.
Gotcha.
That's the only. I don't believe, and again, opinion. I don't believe in parallel compression. If you wanted that shit to be punchier, fucking. Turn it up. Turn the bitch up. Like
interesting,
you know,
man.
like a lot of people. That's again, some people it works for them.
Sure.
And so if it works for you,
Right.
by all means. I just don't find the need to parallel compress stuff.
Right.
It doesn't really work for me. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I personally just don't like it.
Right.
You know, I'd rather throw an RVox on there and just bring it down a hair. Again, everything that I do, like when you see people use RVox, they'll bring that shit hella down.
Walk it in.
No,
Wow,
everything
wow.
is in small steps, small moves, because then you get there, you know, a little bit better. When you do too much with one plugin, you kind of fuck shit up.
Right.
So my RVox, I'll bring it like it's up to the top or whatever. I'll bring it down to like -1.
And just let it kiss
and it just kind of kisses it, brings it
Right.
up just a hair. If I really needed to push, I'll bring it down a little bit more. But again, what does it need? What is it asking for?
Right, I understand.
You know?
Dang.
Something tells me you would really, really love FL, bro.
I actually so to the beginning thing,
Okay.
I've worked in Logic, Ableton, and FL. So
Okay.
I've had
You've
all
had
plugins.
experience with them, right.
I've had experience with all of them.
Okay.
Logic, I mix Atmos in.
Yeah. Wow. So you're
it's
mixing
very-
Atmos in Logic.
In Logic, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Because it plays directly in spatial.
Right.
And 90% of consumerism is happening within Apple
Right.
for spatial.
Right.
No one's really listening to spatial, or not spatial, but Atmos in Tidal.
Right.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Right.
Most of it's happening there. So what do I want to do? I want to hear exactly what most of the consumers are going to listen to. That's my target.
Right.
The Tidal shit comes second. Because people don't really listen to that shit.
It's
there.
secondary, like
but
every-
again,
right.
it's difficult because we're shooting for different targets. The binaural sounds very different from the spatial.
It does.
And so I have to prioritize the spatial over the binaural sometimes and say, well, I need to make sure that the spatial is dominant.
Right.
You
right.
know?
As far as that translation, as far as what it
That's
sounds,
because that's 90% of the consumption is happening there with
Right.
Apple. You know?
That's wild. That's crazy.
All right, man.
Okay.
Last but
Last
not
one,
least,
what's got to go?
Not really what's got to go, but what do you prioritize, or
Okay.
what you sacrifice first? Workflow or sonics?
Oh, fuck. That is so.
That's a great- that
That's
was-
the worst
Yo,
one.
That was good.
You got me jammed up.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. That was good.
Fuck, workflow or Sonics? I can't. I don't even know if I could choose between the two. I mean, like, I guess Sonics because that's the end product, right?
Okay.
But workflow gets me there,
Right. Right.
which it's kind of it's a hard one.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's a-
would
yeah.
you rather not have water or water? Fuck, I can't have either.
you know what's funny? I actually great question.
Yeah, it was a
bro. I'm
great
not gonna
question
lie.
because you jammed me up.
I seen Josh Goodwin one time he was saying about Bieber and he was talking about how he dumb down his outboard like processing
Yeah.
because he'll go on tour with Bieber so much.
Exactly.
And he couldn't like be able to recall
You
stuff.
have to find a compromise.
Right.
It's all about compromise. So
Right.
you compromise and say, well, if I'm going to be on the road and it's going to fuck up the sound that I have here, I need to do something so that when I go on the road, I'm not compromising.
Right.
So you just get rid of shit and figure it out.
Right.
You know, like if I had to, if you were like, yo, Teezio, you can't use your room anymore, you have to travel the world and mix, I'd have to compromise and figure out how I'm going to get this shit to sound right just on a laptop.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I get that. Something I wanted to ask you also is today actually. But shout out, by the way, shout out to Republic Studios.
Yes, shout out to Republic.
I was able to go downstairs and they had PMCs, right?
In the Atmos room, is there stereo? I haven't been down there, so I'm just
in
asking.
every room is just straight PMC.
Of course.
Like crazy.
I love it.
They told me that one set of the PMCs was a quarter. Bro, it was nuts. $250,000.
It's the ones that have the four.
Yes,
the
the
big
Q-
one, the giant boxes.
Bro, huge. They look like freaking Transformers, like in the wall.
Yeah.
Shout out Blue. I see you, Blue. And he showed it to me, and you know, that was the first time I heard you speak of them, right?
Yes.
And that was the first time I actually got to hear them for the first time.
Yeah.
And everything you said was so true. It felt like I listened to them and I said, oh, these are playing so loud and I know this isn't gonna like fatigue my ear like other speakers. And the low end was the clean. It was
so clean.
It was so clean, but I still was getting that rumble. You know how you
still get the
desire.
rumble, yeah.
How did you like fall onto the PMCs like when you first like
So there was a guy named DG who is actually a close friend of mine that, okay, back it up. When I was living in New York, I had a studio at Quad, okay? The head engineer at Quad at the time was this guy named DG, okay? The African guy from Zimbabwe. So he's living there now. He doesn't even do music at art level anymore. He's just there. He's got a ranch and all types of shit.
Oh, wow.
He got connected with G-Eazy when G-Eazy went to Quad.
Okay.
Left Quad to become G-Eazy's engineer full time.
Right.
When I moved back to LA, DG moved back to LA, and we were both living in LA at the time. He had gotten these PMC speakers. He had gotten the tall ones, the QS1 or whatever they're called.
Okay.
Whatever.
QSCs. I think I know
Not the
you're talking
QSCs. They're like these tall, long ones.
Okay.
And I was like, these things sound fire.
Right.
And I was like, how much were they? He's like, $85K. And I was like, God damn, bitch, I can't afford that. This is like years. I mean, when I had moved back, this is like 2015, right before I got with, if not right before when I got with Chris, then when I got with Chris.
Got you.
And so I was like, I love these speakers. Right. And so then I found out that they have other models of speakers. So I bought the 226s.
Got you.
Those are my real first starting mixer where I was living in a townhouse and I had this little room. There's an old picture I'll show you, but it was literally, I didn't have any soundproofing in the room. I just had plaques on the wall.
Right.
So I had the 226s and I had a couch, I had a rug and shit. And it was like, I just made it work. I was in a townhouse. So it was like, I had neighbors on both sides. I think the neighbors on the left were deaf. Like old people,
Right.
they never complained.
Wow, that's crazy. You was jamming.
And they were. I knew they were old, but I was like, they definitely deaf because that shit is rumbling.
rocking like.
So I had the 226s, but the 226s, the issue for me was that there's no mid-range tweeter. There's a high frequency tweeter, and then there's the main one.
One, right?
So when I got with 6.2s, boom, there's a massive mid-range tweeter, and so I started to hear all that information,
Right.
that I was missing before. So I wasn't really dialing in my 2Ks and shit like that because I couldn't hear the damn thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So now I have full range speakers,
Right.
which shows me everything: the low end, the mid range, and the high end.
Right. That is my. Can I be honest with you? And you. That's such an obvious thing from like when you say it.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest with you, that's something I've been fighting with my search for monitors right now.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I have the two. You know what I mean? Like the two cones. I just have my high and just that mid or whatever.
What speakers do you have right now?
I have the Adam A5 X regular. Like
Are they the ones with the ribbon tweeter?
Yeah, I've had those for a while.
Do you love them?
I fight with mixes so much on them.
Yeah, because the high end is not like any high end. Because it's a ribbon tweeter.
Right.
To me, it's not really giving me, like, the translation may sound great on those speakers, but when it goes to other shit, which no other listening device has ribbon tweeters for the most part, that sound like that. So it's like you're working in the wrong direction in some effect.
Right.
Now, that's not to say you can't learn the damn things and know how to work and figure it out, right? But definitely think about getting PMC 6.
Oh yeah. Oh no, bro. Let me tell you something. As soon as I went downstairs, I was like, I get it now.
Okay,
like,
so you know, because you went downstairs and listened.
It's so different.
And when you're in LA, you got to come to my studio so you can hear my room.
Say less. And I would love to hear you because I see you have a very minimal setup. Like your setup is so minimal, and I like it. Like I only have like I'd say 6 pieces of outboard gear, and I'm cool.
But you're recording though.
I'm recording.
I'm not recording.
That right.
I have a mic in my closet, like one of those like what's it called, Telefunken Legacy series. So it was like $3,000, yeah. It's in there, and someone came to my house and they're like, "Oh, can I cut the?" I don't have a microphone here. I'm not recording.
He's
this
like, I'm
shit.
not doing that.
I'm not doing it.
I'm
Yeah,
not cutting no
I
damn
don't have any
vocal.
microphones or anything.
Right.
I don't own nothing, bro. I don't do that.
Oh, you got that damn telephone kit.
I got that It's just in my closet. I'm gonna get rid of it at some point.
Right.
But I think I want to keep it too. As like, hey, 20 years from now, I still got this microphone that's been used like 5 times.
Yeah, heck yeah. And I think
know?
George T has actually brought up that microphone because it in your setup. There's a guy, George T.
George T Music.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's awesome. Like he's broken down a lot of your stuff. Shout out to George T. Big fan.
Yes.
And he kind of showed like this is Chris Brown's recording chain, and that Telefunken mic he showed that to like a
Well,
Telefunken and stuff like that.
Chris uses the real one.
Got you, so
and
he's
when
showing
we
that
were
one.
working out of studios, we would use a vintage one, like an old one.
Okay.
When Chris built his studio, I went to Telefunken and I bought him a new one.
Right.
Because the vintage ones are very expensive, and like to be honest, like microphones and headphones break sometimes because we're smoking.
Right.
Drop the shit because it's 4 a.m.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd rather have something that 10 grand loss instead of a fucking 20, 30 grand
That's
loss
a
if
fact
something
too,
happens.
yeah.
Or it might get stolen. I mean, like, you know how it is sometimes?
Right.
You take one eye off that booth, someone go in there, unscrew it, put that shit in their pocket and dip.
To put any of y'all that walk out with a microphone in your leg,
Yo,
bro,
a
is
C800 in your pocket.
Come
And
on,
they're like,
bro.
yo, that's my dick. Like,
Rats is like, yo, bro, it's just me, bro. Chill. And I'm not gonna ask you like, yo, bro, is that
pull
you
it
or
out.
that's my mic?
is that you or is that the mic?
Is that the mic, bro? Like, respectfully, bro.
You should do it, bro.
One of the another thing that I wanted to ask you
That's
was
the golden question.
no, not yet. This is my second to
hyped.
last.
No,
I'm
we not
hyped,
even
I'm
like we not even.
I'm- bro.
we chilling,
Yeah, we chilling.
bro. We
Chilling,
got
bro.
a lot
I'm
of
just
shit to
hyped. I
talk
want to
about.
know what he trying to ask.
Okay.
man.
This is my second to last like main question.
I got one more after before
say
you
less,
ask
I'll let
me
you
one.
go
We not
right
in any
after this
rush
one.
though. I ain't even got nowhere to go.
I'm
I got
cool.
my flights tonight.
I know. We got my man. We going out to eat later. By the way, I'm just like y'all know. We foodies. I seen that you have the Orbit summing mixer.
Yes, I love the sub.
You love that one. So when I was on the market looking for a summing mixer, my choices were between the Orbit, the Dangerous 2 Bus Plus.
Okay.
And then the third one was I was looking at the. It starts with an S. Oh my gosh, is it Antelope makes it? Satire. I know people are like they know what it is. It starts with an S. Satori.
It's not the SSL one. Right?
No, not the SSL one. It's like a Antelope one. It's not. I don't know if it's an Antelope. I forgot Satori. It was a Satori
I don't know
summing
that
mixer.
one,
Okay,
yeah.
cool. But I like the Satori because it was a summing mixer and it was a monitor controller.
Right. Okay. That's good. Yeah.
So I was choosing between those three. I strayed away from the Orbit because I was like, dang, there's nothing on it. It's like
That's why I have it because
that's
there's nothing
funny.
on it.
I was like,
I
what
want
made
less
you?
shit. Y'all complicating the fuck out of my life. Baines has the Orbit, but he has the one that has all the knobs.
Okay.
He's got to fucking what's it called? He's got to calibrate it. He's got to do all this shit. Sometimes
Right.
if one knob moves, you might not notice when someone bumps into it.
Right.
I want nothing on my shit.
Right.
Less. If I open up a plugin and there's a million knobs, I'm closing the bitch.
You like, no, I can't do this.
I'm
Right.
not. I have a deadline and I don't have time to learn
Facts.
this shit.
Right.
I got to read the fucking dictionary to
Right.
fucking get this shit.
So that's what attracted you to the Orbit. It's just the simplicity
Simple
of it.
shit.
It is.
It's doing what the other one is doing. It's
Right.
just I don't have control of turning shit up and down, but
Right.
I have that shit in. Like I wouldn't go to a summing mixer and be like, my drums are too loud. Let me turn it down on the summing mixer. I just
Right.
turn my drum bus down.
Right, and
like
going
because
into
that's
it.
recallable and
Right.
the fucking other shit is not.
Right.
I want simple.
So with your summing mixer, what do you notice about? Because there's obviously I don't know if you know, but there's a big argument.
Separate. Yeah, there's always this.
There's an argument about summing mixers, and people are like, it's not really a difference and stuff. What do you notice about your summing mixer as far as what it gives you in your mixes?
I want to say separation, but even then, also I've been using it for so long that I
Right.
don't know exactly what it's doing anymore because I've been using it for years
Facts.
now.
Right.
But it does give me. I put the blue light on the
Silk.
silk one,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
blue
yeah.
silk, and
Yeah.
that accentuates the low end a little bit.
Yeah.
I started by using the red silk, and that shit would add this high end sheen that sounded weird.
Right.
So I stopped using it, and
Right.
then Baines was like, "You got to use the blue silk." So I was like, "All right." So I'm on the blue silk now, and I keep it at
Interesting.
9 o'clock.
Okay. So
But I
you
don't
use
really.
blue.
To be honest, if you were to take my blue silk and go 3 notches down, 3 notches up, like you're not gonna be, oh my god.
That's true.
It's not gonna. It's such a small thing. You may not even notice.
I don't. You know what's funny? I have the Knee Portico MBP2. So it has the blue and red silk
Yes,
on it.
yes.
I'll hit the blue silk from time to time, like on it's like if I'm trying to soften something and make something feel like warm and
Warmer,
Like,
yeah.
I'll use the blue. But I'm not gonna lie, and this is probably I'm akin to my speakers.
Mm-hmm.
When I hit that red, it immediately makes like everything's like like a more aggressive and gritty.
Harsh.
It's
These are
harsh,
harsher, yeah.
but that's what I noticed later on and why I started to like back off on Red.
Yeah.
Because I noticed it was getting
But you're gonna hear it
harsh.
less on your Adams with the ribbon tweeter. So like if you were to
Gotcha.
hear that Red on my speakers, I was like, everything has this fucking weird mid-range high end to it, and I was like, I can't use this anymore.
Interesting.
It was weird.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I've been staying away from it lately. See, I really want to know that because I thought I was bugging. I was like, why is this Red? In the moment, it's like, ooh. But then
when you really start to hear it, you're like, something about it is just throwing me off.
Yeah, yeah.
So the blue is just smooth.
Yeah,
low end shit.
blue is super smooth. It just
Hell
adds
yeah.
like that saturation and stuff like that.
Gotcha. I got a new like segment I want to introduce to the show.
Oh,
We got a new
God.
segment?
You're gonna
Right.
shoot from. All right, he's shooting from half now.
shooting
But
from
right.
half. But
I don't know what this
I
is.
think he got it.
What?
Look at that. It actually that coincides. This is called the breakdown, man.
It's called the.
So you gonna throw your
like
phone
it's
every
hot.
time you do the
Oh,
segment?
word. Yeah, it's called the breakdown, but it's not what you think.
Okay.
I want you to tell us a story about one time a piece of studio equipment damaged in your
Oh damn.
whether it was like a rapper spilt something or like
Oh,
your
I
favorite
have a
piece.
really good one. It was actually me that did it.
Ooh.
So I was with Juicy J doing those mixtapes he was doing with Lex Luger back in the day.
Oh wow.
Okay.
So we went out to Virginia from Memphis, and Lex Luger's he's the guy in the back of the room making hits, and all his friends are the ones like talking and shit like that.
He's back
You
there.
like, where the fuck is Lex? He back there on his laptop with headphones, like he's the
Right.
quiet guy
In FL Studio.
So we're in the studio, and everyone's smoking weed, we're chilling, and I remember there was like the credenza. I don't know if you guys see. I always get heat for this shit. But the desk that's in between the console, the desk that's between the console and the back of the room.
Yeah.
I call it a credenza. Some
That's
people
funny.
call it the producer desk.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep calling it the credenza. 'Cause that's just-
Credenza.
I don't know why. That's what it's called. So there's the credenza, and then next to it was the computer, and then I put remember the Western Digital hard drive, the one that looked like a book.
Yes.
So I stood that for some dumb reason. Instead of laying it down, I stood it, and then the cable came out the front and went to the old cheese grater that had the 800 in the front.
Got you.
And somehow when I walked by it, I caught the cable, and the whole drive flew off and landed on the floor. And the whole room stopped. Even Lex was like, "Yo," because he saw the room get quiet, and he's like, "Something's wrong." Yo, and so Juicy's like, "Yo, I'm gonna kill you." So it ended up still working. It was fine, but
I
it was one of
know.
those moments where I was like,
Please
"Bro, I'm
boot up."
dead.
Right.
I'm dead. Like I'm in Virginia. They burying me in this bitch
Oh
today."
my God.
So, but it ended up working out. But it was
Right.
one of those moments. It was an amateur moment. Like
Right.
the hard drive should never just be out exposed in that manner. If you lay it down,
Right.
put something on top, put something in the way so someone doesn't walk by. Like
Right.
you learn, but that's part of learning. You make
Yeah.
mistakes and you learn because had that happened with Chris, it's a different story.
Yeah.
That's a
I'm at
fact.
that level where it's like, okay, I just got fired.
Right.
Who's gonna hire me now because he's gonna tell everyone that I
This
broke
kid,
the hard drive.
Right, made a mistake.
Versus this was 2009, 2010.
Right,
So it was
right.
like no one remembers that anymore.
Right.
And I'm glad I made those mistakes then and not now.
Speaking of a mistake, one time you did tell a story.
Yes. Is it
and-
the UNICEF shit?
Yes, it is. And that story,
Wait, what's the story?
I'm gonna let him tell it.
Yeah.
But bro, when you told this story, like my heart went out to you because I've been through that.
Yeah.
Where I've like sat and said, "Oh my God, I recorded that wrong," and you knew there was nothing you could do.
Nothing.
And so what happened? You were at a studio in Jungle City.
Jungle's like in New York.
Beautiful.
And there are not, I mean, I'm about to go downstairs with you later, but that at the time was the most beautiful. I was talking about, bro, I'm recording a bunch of kids for UNICEF. So there's like a stage of kids in the live room. Have you been to the
Yes,
room?
we've been to Jungle
So
City. I've
there's
been to
the
Jungle
live
City.
room, and then behind it is all glass, and it
Right.
was snowing. So I'm just like the assistant. I forget his name. Badass assistant. I forget his name, but he was the shit.
Right.
He was like, "You want some hot cocoa?" And I was like, "Yes."
Yes.
So he goes, and they have this wonderful machine. He makes me hot cocoa. He breathes it. I'm just having the time of my life.
Chilling.
And I remember they had a specific converter in there that it was a clock. And usually, if you're not clocking in Pro Tools, you'll get a thing like Pro Tools is at 44 and this is at 48.
Right.
Yeah.
And you'll get the notice
Right.
before anything even happens. This clock, it was called the Bomb Factory, I think. It was not, or Bomb something. It was not telling Pro Tools that it was off. And that thing was behind a door. So do you know when you're
It's
there,
in a
there's a door
closet.
over there?
Yeah.
There's a closet.
Right,
So
right.
so the door is always mostly closed because people are smoking and shit like that. So
Sure.
they keep the door closed. So I sit down, I pull up my session at 44.1, blah, blah, blah. I get no fucking
So you think it's
notice.
fine? Because I would do the same thing. I'm like, oh, it didn't.
Yeah,
would've
it didn't do
the
anything, so
interface-
I'm gonna
yeah.
keep going. I'm not
Right.
checking the damn clock every time I get,
Right.
which now I do, but I'm not
bet.
checking the damn clock every time I do something.
Right.
So I go about recording, and they're filming
Right.
while they're recording. So now the audio has to sync to picture.
Right.
Which is the worst part.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, after recording all day,
Jesus. He said that hurt.
it hurt him.
It hurt, bro. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm recording, and then everything's fine. Nobody notices until the end when I start giving them the rough so they can start editing.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, it's not syncing. Like, it just keeps going off.
Drifting.
Keeps drifting. And I'm like, that's so weird. And the pitch inside of Pro Tools when it was playing that, the pitch was fine, but then the pitch would change because it was now playing at 48.
48,
So
right.
like, it doesn't sound the same.
Right.
And that's when we knew that it sounded pitched, we knew that it was a clocking issue.
Right.
So this man, I forget his name, but he opens the door and it says 48 on there.
And you were like, God damn.
And it was like, we were on UNICEF budgets, like fucking, I had this guy, Venus Brown, who was my mentor. And to this day we still speak, but he was like consultant to the chairman at BMG. So he took me under his wing. He was my mentor, like all through coming up for me.
Right.
And he had brought me in on this project to work on it. And I literally was like, bro, we just lost a whole day of recording.
Right.
Lost the kids, lost this girl named Cherry that I was recording, lost her takes.
Right.
And it was like a complete fucking loss.
Disaster, right.
And I was like, I felt like there was more than this many people of like camera operators and all this shit in there.
Right.
And I'm like, I fucked everything
up. It's
y'all
this
came
guy.
here for nothing today.
Right.
And I was like, ever since then, I would open the door and be like, the clock's at 48. Close the fucking door. Open the door again. It's still at 48.
48,
Close
you were
the
like, I
goddamn
gotta check this shit.
Yeah, because I didn't want that to happen again.
Yeah, I could imagine,
But
man.
my experience, and again, like, you should always check it, is like, if it doesn't give you a notice,
Right.
then you're fine.
Yeah.
But then you realize that some clocks don't communicate with Pro Tools directly.
Right.
Yeah, I
They
think
just
that's
are
a Pro
passive
Tools
through it.
problem.
You know what I mean?
Right,
So
right.
that's when I learned a fucking heavy lesson.
That
And all
is
these
crazy.
lessons I learned early in my career, because had I done that doing Chris's album, whoa, we would have been fucked.
Facts. I
You know
hear
what I mean?
that. Right. With a clocking
Exactly,
issue.
with
Right.
a clocking issue, and it's like he just recorded the whole song, spent hours in there, and then he got to record the whole song again.
Right. And there's no way. It's like, fam, that was
What
the
we
take
tried
and
to do was a mathematic thing
Uh-huh.
of taking how many samples we'd have to pitch it
Right.
and time it for it to go from 40 to 41.
Right.
And it was one of those things where like they brought like two laptops in and they were trying to play it out of one at 44 and clock it in on the other one.
capture
to
it.
try to and I don't think it ended up working.
Still
If
didn't
I'm not
work.
mistaken, I don't think it
Yeah.
worked. But there's a way of doing it where when I told this story, people were in the comments like, "Oh, bro, you just got to do it. You just got to do it." And I'm
Right.
like, right. Well, tell me
Sure.
that 10 years ago. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Facts.
So there is a way of doing it. It's not the prettiest way, I'm
Sure.
assuming, but
Right.
it can be done,
Right.
I think.
Right. See, my brain goes to what's that plugin? Vocaline.
Yes.
My brain went there. It was like maybe a Vocaline where it's like if you had the scratch track, but you was recording all the audio.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a Vocaline thing. I actually don't even use Vocaline like I used to. I used to use it a lot because I used to want all the vocals had to be in sync. But what happens is if you sync the vocals too close, you lose the dimension.
Yeah.
You actually need the little imperfections to make your ears say, there's something here and there's something there.
Right.
If it's too tight, your ears won't hear that depth. I mean,
Right.
the width
Right.
that you hear. So sometimes if something's really off, I'll nudge it by hand.
Right.
But I try not to get too in depth with making things perfect
And tight.
because
Right.
it takes away from the texture and the width.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
That
I like
actually,
texture.
Yeah.
That actually brings me to the point that I wanted to ask you. So this is something that I've been, and this is a staple within Chris's Sonics, and something that I think you have evolved and like modernized extremely well. I think out of all the incarnations of Chris, your engineering has my favorite example of these. You, and of course, a lot of credit of this between Teezio and Chris. You guys have this very interesting, I don't know if it's a process or what have you, but you guys record doubles and overdubs in a very interesting way, very differently from a lot of mainstream music.
What would be different? Tell me.
So when I'm hearing like, let's say like a Brandy record, just for example, or even a Beyonce record, like I feel like a lot of engineers, they're getting the musicality, they're trying to make it as clean as possible, but obviously the backgrounds are the backgrounds. We don't want them to overwhelm the lead vocal.
Yeah.
When it comes to Chris's stuff, it almost feels like the backgrounds on like consistently every album, they're just kind of ethereal. Like there's a character to them that's different.
Okay.
Almost like it like when those kind of moments and ad-libs come up, it kind of like the song kind of goes 3D for a moment.
Okay.
For lack of a better explanation.
Yes.
You know?
So part of it could be one thing where I'll take, like, let's say I have a vocal that's a stack, but it doesn't have stacks. I'll put the doubler on there.
Okay.
And I'll take the center out. and I bring the high end down, and I make the 2 dots go all the way up to the top, so it's loud,
Right.
Because it's lower in volume.
And you lower the high end, you said.
And because when you open up that plugin, the high end's boosted up, so I'll lower it down, and that actually creates 2 things. It creates the double, but it does it with a little bit of like weird phasiness that creates texture. So the way I create texture is things sound different. I don't put this. If you put the same processing on every single thing, they're gonna sound too close.
Right.
So if you kind of like make less high end on the backgrounds, you'll hear the difference between the background and the lead a little more, which might add to the effect of the 3D. Right. Another thing is like when I'm stacking like for lead notes on the hook, the lead note meaning the main note, it's always 4. And the way I pan those is I'll take, let's say for example they're all at 0. I'll take the two bottom ones of the stacks and I'll pan those hard left and right, and I'll bring them down at a 4 or 5 dB difference from the top one. So let's say the top one's at -2, these would be at -6.
I totally understand.
Right. So the lower ones are panned hard left and right, and the 2 top ones are panned at 50 or 40.
Right.
And what that does is it creates a pyramid, because if you pan everything hard left and right, you leave an open
space
in the middle.
Right. Right.
So I actually will take the bottom 2 will be super hard left, down a little bit, and then the other ones will be, so it'll create a pyramid where you're getting the width, combination with the 8th note delay,
Right.
and you're still getting a center channel,
Right.
because you want to hear, you don't want to just hear this, you want to hear this.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Especially on a hook.
Right.
Now, there are occasions where I've made certain songs sound like it's all coming from the sides, but that was a case by case basis.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it's You're Such a Very Special, it's a Very Special Girl. That song, if you listen to it, it sounds like the vocals are really wide.
Yeah. Right.
So I probably did 100, and then I probably did like 60 or 70 on the other one, so that it wasn't, there wasn't a full center.
Right.
But that created more width, and that was specifically done just for that song.
And your other stack, so say for instance, I know you like the root of the stack will
So
be
the root is 4,
and then
everything
let's
else
say
is 2s.
Harmony. Wow.
Now,
Okay. So you do 2.
People like to do 4s for everything.
Right.
You don't really need that, especially
Right.
today, because
Right.
less is more.
Right.
Back in the day, Brandy would do 8 million stacks, and it sounded awesome.
Right.
But now we want space.
Right.
You know, like things, we have such what's it called, ADD with shit.
Yeah.
That it's like the attention span is lower, so it's like we need to simplify things for listeners.
Right.
First of all, go ask someone on the street if they know what a harmony is. They won't even be able to tell you.
Right.
You know what I mean? They'll say, "Oh, I know what a harmony is. It's a harmony."
Right.
No, it's, you know what I'm saying? It's a harmonization with the main note. So it's like,
Exactly.
you don't need, if I want the main note to be the main note, I want to create a difference. So those I'll pan 70 or 80 or sometimes all the way. Like high notes, I'll pan them all the way because I want that high end candy on the sides. So it's all about tricking your mind into feeling like, you know what I mean? It's like a acoustic or sonic thing.
Right. I'm not gonna lie, and Jair, clip this up. Clip that up.
Yeah,
because
that's
when
gold.
you're describing, for instance, I'll talk about, there's ways to create depth with volume, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Where it's like, hey, that quiet thing that's in the back helps you understand where that loud thing is in the front.
Right.
So I'm saying to myself, duh. With a background vocal, I've been traditionally just like hard left, hard right. Okay, there it is. And then I'll have like something up the middle. But when you're saying, hey, turn down the hard left, hard rights, right? Boom. And then the other 2, just kind of put them up here. I literally can visualize and see that. And I know how that's going to, I
visualize a pyramid.
Right.
That's
okay.
what I visualize.
Got you.
Yeah.
Bro,
That was a,
And I say that to say this.
we gonna go crazy, right?
Respect to
I ain't
the
gonna lie.
man.
We gonna go
Wait.
crazy.
Because I saw this clip going viral.
What?
We know Michael Jackson did 16 stacks.
Oh, you talking about Rodney?
Thank you, Rodney.
For sure.
My
But
brother-
guess what? That was that time.
That was that time. Yeah.
Bro, you are making a Jersey Club record. You do not need 16 stacks.
100%.
Like,
But that goes back to I saw Michael do that. This a 808 ass, like, it's not a Michael song.
I hear you, it's different.
You know, I saw him do that. I got to do it on mine. Like,
Right.
you know, you can take from things, but
Right.
don't just say this is what I do to everything because I see this. And I don't want anyone to do it on my. I don't want you guys to look at my shit and be like,
This is
oh,
the
well,
way
that's
to
how
go.
I'm always going to do myself. I'm always going to do that.
Right.
I change things sometimes,
Right.
based on the record.
Right. You try new
know?
things, I'm sure, too, and stuff like that.
What happened?
I say you try new things, too.
I try new things,
Yeah.
like try that, like with an ad lib, like I might change the format a little bit.
Okay.
Just because, and you may not notice it right away that the vocal's deeper, but it'll sound like a little bit of separation from the lead.
Right.
Yeah.
More reverb as well.
Right.
Things like that to make you be able to contrast things. That's
Right.
my
Yes.
biggest thing is contrast.
Right. Understood.
Chris has been doing this thing on, I feel like the last 2 albums where he'll play with the format on the lead vocal.
Yes.
And make it like low.
Well,
like,
actually,
like
I'll
I
tell
hear
you
that.
something. There's a song called Mind. Oh, Make Up Your Mind.
Okay.
On 11:11. You see how I have to kind of like play it in my head.
Yeah,
and I know what it is.
I heard that right. Yeah.
So that actually came from when we were writing it.
Okay.
So when we were writing it, like the writer, his name's Rocco. He's fire fucking writer.
Oh, okay.
He came to my house the other day. He's
nice.
the nicest kid. They did that intentionally, where it was like, and then it goes down, and then the lead, and it was, and then when we cut it, Chris wanted the exact same thing on his fucking vocal.
Wow, so he just kept that right there, like what it was.
He's really about matching. Like if you get a demo and like there's a lot of fucking reverb, like he wants a lot of reverb.
Yeah.
Because what made you draw to that record was the essence of the record.
I get that.
And so if you say this record has a lot of reverb and then you take it all away, I no longer have the attachment like I did to the demo or whatever the case may be. Right. So sometimes like there's records where his vocal sounds thinner. And it's usually because in the recording process, that was the vibe we were going for. And then in the mixing process, I kept the essence.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, like you can argue like, oh, well, he's not supposed to sound like that. Like, okay, he's not supposed to do a lot of things. Like he can do all types of shit. You know what I mean? He does not have to always sound exactly the same. And that actually creates a little bit of versatility where you're like, wow, I really like how he sounds here, and I really like how he sounds there. Like we were talking about the Nightmare shit. I've never underwatered a lead vocal on a hook for him.
Right.
But we were like, yo, and I think this was also JP when they were recording it. He had made that vocal more filtered, and I just added to it and made it like more reverby and stuff like that. Right. Because he's talking about being in a nightmare. Right. Yeah. So I wanted to create that feeling and it was like, well, Chris isn't supposed to sound like that. Right. Well, for this song he is. Right. Yeah. Like, who cares? It's fucking art. Right. Like, facts.
Listen to that, people in the comments. It's fucking art. Thank you.
It's art. It's like, it's subjective. Like, who cares? You know? Like,
on the intro for the last, not 11:11, Breezy.
For Breezy.
What's that?
Wheels Fall Off.
For which one? Wheels Fall.
I knew you was gonna bring that up. With Capella,
When his like, it's the switch in the hook. Yeah. Like, then I lay me down to sleep, and it feels like regular Chris,
but it's like,
and it goes down.
Yeah, but that pitch feels like, it feels, the format.
You know
that's what you was talking about.
Yes.
That's the song
you know why? You know why? Hold on.
Why?
It's because Friday worked on that record with me.
I knew it. Oh, because that's Jinx, motherfucker. It sounds like, because it has that sound. Like, yes, like Friday.
Yeah, and again, when we work with Friday, we're writing, and Friday's laying some vocals down, and however he does it, we want to keep that essence. That was the magic that was happening in the room, and that goes across the board for anything. Artist, anything you're working on. That spark and magic that sparks the record, you have to keep that. Once you throw that away, I don't supposed to sound like that. That's wrong. Then you fuck it all up, and then you get the "What's your kill fee?" Yeah. And that's the worst sentence you could hear. What's your kill fee? That means we're not using your mix. We're going to pay you a little fee to get you off our backs.
Yeah. Holy, that's a crazy. For you to hate like somebody saying, yo, I'm just going to pay you off. You like, yo, bro,
don't touch
you know how you got to
like, don't touch here. I'm going to give you some money. Go away. That's the worst shit.
That's really it. Yo, you got to bring it over to the Bronx. That's the deaded fee.
Imagine we're going to bring that down.
Bring that over to the engineers world. Okay, my last question for him personally.
Here we go.
My last question for him personally.
Is this the big one?
This is my big one. So you have a mix that keeps me up at night, right?
Okay.
Every time I relax. Every time I listen to it, right? You from New York, OD. Every time I listen to this record, it is in my I use Audio Streamliner like as my AB, kind of like Metric AB. I use that, and one of the songs in there is if I'm feeling good, if I'm really feeling myself, like I got this one.
Please don't let it be a mix I hate.
I'll load up Players.
Okay,
okay,
I love that.
Okay, good. That mix, and the reason why I loaded up is because that mix has become my reference for "You're Doing Too Much, Kid."
Yes,
and I'll tell you why. Because it's so simple.
Yeah.
No verb. Simple. But look, that wasn't entirely. I can't even take the credit for that. Like Johnny Goldstein is an insane. You talking about clack 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 on a computer? This motherfucker moves at 1,000,000 miles per hour on Ableton.
Right.
So
we got one.
His vision and Coi's vision of the record was put on me. Like, vocals dry. Right. It should just sound like in your face. Right. It's only a kick, I think a snare, a hat, and then the synth.
Yeah.
Simple.
Right.
All it is about that kick hitting and the vocalist.
That's it.
You know what I mean? Right. And so when they came to me, it was like, it needs to sound like this.
Right.
And so instead of me thinking like, fuck that, it's got to have some reverb on the vocal, I said, I'm going to follow their direction. Right. And it cuts through insane.
Like,
and I always think I'm like, that's another thing too, as engineers, we're not always the ones responsible for, it's really most of the The decision making happens with the recording engineer, and that's why I think the recording engineer doesn't get enough
credit.
Because you got to think about it. You hear a record I have, and you hear all these delays. For the most part, I'm not, especially when I'm not mixing CB, like I'm not putting those delays in there because the demo, because I'm not gonna send an artist a record that didn't have any delays, and I'm like, we put throws all over this shit, so when you hear that shit, it's usually already coming to me like that, and I'm adjusting, and maybe I'll EQ it or compress it or level it, but those things are already there, you know what I mean?
Jesus, man.
Wait, hold on, quick. Don't leave that yet. Since you brought that part up about the lead vocal, and this is something that me and Dev go back and forth with a lot.
Are you going to ask that question?
You already know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's go. And we've had our own little kind of like, we really get in our heads about this. We really sit down and we're like, for example, and y'all will know exactly what I'm talking about. Drake, for example, is premier when it comes to, damn, this vocal sounds really clean. Is there a reverb on it? So on records, so rap records specifically, where you're attacking something where you're like, you're just going in, let's just say, and you're just like, I don't want to use reverb on this. How are you creating that sense of space? Are you defaulting to a different trick when it comes to a delay? How are you creating that sense of space where you can't, the listener, and even yourself, can't really tell, okay, this sounds like it's in a room, but it sounds clean enough, that's fine, versus, okay, this was recorded in a room, there's no reverb here, but it sounds like it's sitting.
Yes, so that's with using very, very little reverb, to the point where you don't hear it, you feel it. So that's the thing you're going to like notice, that there's hearing something and there's feeling something. And usually feeling something means that you can't hear it, you feel it. And the opposite is the opposite.
Right.
So I put just a hair, and you're not going to be like, oh, there's reverb on there. You're just going to be like, maybe it was the space he was recording in.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, things sometimes aren't entirely dry. And sometimes they are. Sometimes it's like no fucking reverb. Cut through all the way. There's a guy named Paulo Londra. He was on Ed Sheeran's album. He's from Argentina, which is where I'm from. And most of his records have zero fucking...
It's dry.
It's dry.
Dry as hell.
Because the vocal just cuts through the fucking... And it doesn't work for everyone. Some people need the lush. Some people don't need the lush, and they need the cut through. So when you listen to those records, for the most part, you're not going to hear any reverb on the leads
at all. And
that's a producer decision and artist decision, not my decision.
It's not your decision.
I love reverb.
Me too.
Because it just makes me feel like I'm fucking
felt that you swimming.
But there's something about taking it all away.
Like sometimes, there's times where I'll be mixing a record, and then I'll turn my effects off for a second, like my effects send to my dangerous. Like I'll just turn my effects in, and I'm like, ooh. Like, look how nice and clean and
what's
just like
really nice
pristine.
to do is like where the beat drops out. To completely dry it out.
That's my favorite.
Because it creates this moment where the song's going, and then it just sucks you in intimate, and then boom, hook, and then it explodes maybe with reverb or whatever. But that's a cool trick, is to like at the end of a line where the beat drops and the vocal's still going, cut all the effects. And it creates this like really sharp, because you're listening reverb, and then someone just turns the lights off. So when you shut the lights off, you're like, oh fuck. It gets your attention when it goes dry. So there's different ways of getting the attention. Part of it is dropping the beat. And then if you drop the beat and you leave the reverb and delay, you kind of fill the space again, when what you were trying to do is kill the space.
You're creating contrast.
You're creating
contrast. From going from
all
those
about
sections and
contrast.
stuff like that.
Because if without contrast, it's like everything just sounds the same. You know.
My last question, I swear. Okay.
Why are you?
I don't know. I
don't know. Hold on. I got a question, yo, bro. Kobe, LeBron.
Wait, no. Hold on. God damn it. Hold on. My last question to you, and this is the question that literally this is what I had brought to the audience. And everybody was, kind of shouted out and stuff like that. The funny thing about this is that you have so much out there that you put out there, which we thank you for.
Which I don't put it out. I mean, I do it with people and they put it out.
They just put it out. But you have so much out there, which is the blessing of, because I come from your time too, where it's like 2009, where I was like, dog, it was like one guy, his name was, I forgot his name, but it was the Recording Revolution. And I've been wanting to give him love.
Oh, shout out to him.
Because I went to his page the other day. He had a video doing What We Do Now 13 years ago.
Is it Graham?
14 years
before
ago.
It was even a thing.
Before Dave.
Is it Graham?
I think it's great. Something Graham. But his channel was Recording Revolution. He doesn't get his flowers on the YouTube space because he was the guy. I remember as a kid, I was like, dog, like he's showing me how to EQ. Like that was mind-boggling.
Yeah, because we didn't have that.
No access. Then when Dave came along, I lost my mind as a kid. Like he was like, I'm gonna show you how I did Ray J's vocal. And I'm like, I'm gonna see Ray J's vocal getting EQ'd right now. Like that was big.
That is important to create a connection between the listener. Like when I show like Victoria on My Mama.
Oh yeah.
And people are like, I know that song.
What? You didn't know he did that? Tell me you didn't know he did that record.
Well, guys, there's going to be a part 2 to this because there's a lot more questions.
He's nominated for mad shit.
Yeah, but that's what
the record of the year is like the one for
yeah,
sure.
Yo, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Jesus.
No.
Oh, you put something in
put
there.
life
bro.
on
Put some you put some magic in
that
there,
on my-
which we brought that up the other day. Shout out real quick. This is a actual question for Ulysses. Shout out Ulysses of OTR.
Facts, OTR,
we
yeah.
actually went back and forth the other day because we were listening to the record and we were like,
one? Victoria
on my mama,
Yeah.
and we were like, yo, some of her breaths. Victoria's a very
Facts.
dynamic
Yes.
vocalist.
Yes.
Some of her breaths, and it all like while dynamic, it all still sounded consistent.
Yes.
Are
That's
you
going
using?
through and clip gaining it?
You're
Yeah. And so like
okay.
I'll go through and like if this breath is like and then that breath is like I'll bring this one down because I want to create like a natural sounding thing. You don't want to be listening to a record and one breath is loud, the other one's low.
Right.
Sometimes I even have to EQ it because sometimes a breath or an S, one S will be like and then the other one will be fine.
Right.
So I'll do two things. I'll either EQ it or if it doesn't sound right, EQing it because sometimes you can kill it to the point where it doesn't sound natural.
Right.
I'll find another S. And that's where I got there was this really can't say his name, but there's this really famous, very famous person that doesn't even do music that I would record him before I started with Chris. And the way he would record is like if he'd be like, the cow went to the mall, and he'd record the cow went to the mall, the cow went to the mall over and over and over and over, and then I'd grab the cow, bruh, and I'd piece it, and then when I'd get here, I'd start nudging and kind of piecing it together to get it to sound natural, and I was able to get everything to sound really natural, and all of this stuff, I think to me, all the stuff I went through before Chris was a preparation to Chris, to get with him, right?
Yeah.
And then what Chris got me was ninja training.
Right.
Like for real, like, and I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to do that crazy edit because he could sing lines easily.
Right.
But I had to do that so then I could become really good at other shit.
Right.
So then it was about finding like, oh, if there's an S or a sh over here that I could use here. That's why I'll hear something that's wrong and I'll immediately start thinking like, where else in the song does this exist?
Oh, okay.
And I'll grab the sh and I'll bring it over there. I may have to change it. I may have to size it. I may have to EQ it to get it to sound natural. But for me, it's all about listening to something and saying, does it sound natural? Like it's if I'm talking.
Right.
And that's constantly my thinking is because sometimes you have to make bold moves.
Right.
You know, to try to get shit to like sound dope. You have to cut shit no one's ever gonna know because it sounds natural. But for the most part, a lot of times S's like this S might be fine, this S is not good.
Right.
If that S is good to bring over here, I'll bring it over and I'll copy it there.
Right. And that's how you get in that consistency with just basically
You
clip
have to have
gaining
consistency
things and
with
stuff
clip
like that.
gaining and
Right.
then I use audio suite. Like if there's like sometimes a lot of times this happens, you'll have a verse and one part goes and it's like super resonant.
Right.
So like don't go to the EQ on that track and take that resonant because you're affecting now every other vocal that's fine.
Right.
So what I'll do is I'll highlight that little E part and I'll take the audio suite, I'll put it on where it shows a little thing so it like loops.
Yeah.
And then immediately you'll see that part.
Right.
And you'll hear it and then bring it down and then when you commit it, you play through and it sounds natural.
Consistent.
So I keep sometimes I have to go through an audio suite a bunch of like parts where the vocal gets resonant goes up.
Right.
But it's like sometimes it's like 2 or 3 lines and at that point I'll just make a new track and then I'll put another EQ just on that where I'm attacking those frequencies.
Gotcha, okay.
So it's all about it doesn't matter how if I have to make 5 tracks, who the fuck cares? We can have how many tracks? Thousands of tracks now.
True. Right.
So don't compromise and be like, well, I'm just gonna do it to the whole EQ because it's on that track. Yeah, we'll make another fucking track and then do it to that so that it can be perfect.
Right.
I'm a perfectionist with shit, and still I don't feel like everything is. It's one of those things where it's like
I feel you.
It's never
Right.
perfect.
Right.
You know, it's like
At some point, I feel like, oh, my mama, we gonna talk about it in 3 years. You be like, oh man, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, no, I did that shit. They came to me out of nowhere, bro. They were like, "Can you mix this record?" And I was like, and I've known Victoria for a very long time, not personally like that, but when I worked with Eric Bellinger back in the day, his manager was working with Victoria.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
And now Victoria's with the girl named Rochelle, who's an amazing manager. And they came to me and they were like, yo, we want you to mix this record. And I was like, and this producer Deputy, shout out to Deputy because I think he suggested me for the mix.
Interesting.
Because he produced it. And it was the first time I had worked with him. He just out of nowhere, you know, and God bless him. But he came to me. I mixed the record. We had some light changes.
Right. Yeah.
And then even when the record came out, it was no different than
Any other record.
Any other record. I
Right.
mean, like, you know, until it really took off, until we got the Grammy nominations, like
we got
that shit. Now it's like I pinned it on my Instagram because I'm like, this record could win a fucking crazy. We're also up for best engineered album.
I seen that.
Yeah, I
that
saw
too.
that. I
We
was
peeped
like,
that. Congrats on that.
Which
man.
I'm trying to figure out. Like, do me and Neil Pogue like go up there and receive it? I don't know.
I don't-
I haven't sit in my chair.
I
I'm
didn't.
not
I
gonna
never.
take a picture.
To be honest with you, and I feel bad for saying this on the Audionerds platform, but I didn't know like it was a best engineered album. Like that.
There's
That's
a
They don't
best
put a lot of-
engineered
yeah.
album.
They don't put a lot of urban stuff.
It's in the. It's not in the main show though.
Right,
It's in the
it's
show
from
before.
before.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this year I'm gonna go to that one in case we do win it.
Right.
Because I'm a cry.
oh yeah.
Because I was thinking like, okay, back to your. Which one do you get rid of?
Yeah.
You get 2 Grammys, right?
Right.
To choose from.
Okay.
One, and you're an engineer. One says record of the year. Wow, right?
Wow.
The other one says best engineered though.
That's
and
hard.
you're an engineer.
Oh my
Which one do you
God.
get rid of? I mean, like, which one do you like choose if
See,
you could only
I-
choose one of them?
I'm a producer, so
Okay.
I would say
Okay.
My
You're gonna say
equivalent
record
would
of the
be-
year.
No, my equivalent would be
Producer of the year.
producer of the year, non-classical, or
Oh, you're on a Grammy board.
song.
You're
Yeah.
I forgot you're on a board.
Yeah, because he was like, "Yo, make sure."
So
you,
song
make
of
sure
the
you vote for
year
that players
versus
Yeah, so-
producer of the year.
Ah,
You would choose producer, I feel like.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel
Wow.
like, but it's hard though because it's like, would I give up record of the year,
Yeah, bro.
Because the other one says engineered. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's like, oh, I don't know
what
which
it-
one.
you
I
know
want
what?
both,
I think
bitch.
there's more of a. I think that would mean more because
Which one?
Which one?
the engineered one because
Okay,
it's
because I'm
your
an engineer.
peers. Yeah, and it's,
It's
like
my
yeah,
peers.
a bunch
the
of
peers.
engineers went through all of these albums and said,
No cap. You know what it's the equivalent of? It's like every year is a season, like right. All the engineers, we all play for teams and stuff like that. But who's gonna get the MVP?
Yeah, who gets
of the
engineering
year?
versus who
Like
gets the chip.
engineer, like for the engineering field.
Yeah,
So to
yeah.
me, I'm not gonna lie.
You
to
would do
know
engineered?
that year I was the best, or
Yeah.
I was not.
That's what I'm saying.
I was-
sure.
I ain't gonna
But
lie.
then record of the year, like that's the highest.
That's the highest.
That's the
Yeah.
highest one. So that's why I'm
Yeah.
like, shit.
but I'm
You
not
know?
gonna lie. Yeah,
what a great problem.
Yeah,
That's a great problem.
I haven't solved
That's
this
great
problem, but
problem.
it's a
Man,
great problem.
I'm rooting for you, man. When voting,
I ain't gonna lie. I'm
for
gonna cry too, bro. I see you. I'm gonna just
Bro,
cry.
I'm
too.
bro.
but if we win anything, I'm gonna start because obviously I haven't won it. I've only been nominated a
Oh, I
bunch of
didn't know
times,
that.
but yeah,
Right.
no, I haven't actually won an actual Grammy
and,
yet.
and I feel bad because I could have sworn you've actually
No, I
won
got
one.
album of the year with Lil Nas X, and
Nice.
Oh,
I
wow.
think Jean Baptiste won that year.
Yes.
Oh,
Jean
yeah.
Baptiste. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But this year I feel like we're the underdog. You know, because
Yeah,
there's Taylor
okay.
Swift and there's all these people, and like a lot of times the underdog wins because
It's very true.
It's not. I don't think Grammys are not based on numbers.
In popularity.
Billboard is based on numbers, and I have my Billboard awards, and there's the time and place for the numbers,
Right.
but there's a time and place for the art.
Right.
And I feel like the Grammys accentuates the art and
Right.
the artist over the numbers.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because obviously, fucking Olivia Rodrigo is streaming 1,000,000 times more than some of the other people that may have won in the category
Yeah,
because
true.
it's not about
The
that.
popularity.
It's not about the
Yeah.
popularity. It's
Right.
about the impact and the art itself.
Right,
Which is
right.
where you have the separation between the Grammys and Billboard. You know what I'm saying?
especially that genre,
Category?
That category.
Which one?
Song and
Song
record,
and
Song
record,
and-
yeah.
song and record, yeah.
and record, like
Yeah.
it's always a big thing. Like, oh, how could you give? Remember when her won it that year?
That was big.
And that beat
But
out,
her is
Old
like,
Town
It
Road.
when
beat
you
out.
know her, she's fucking
Yeah,
the
she's
real
insane, bro.
deal.
Yeah, she's a real deal, bro. Like she's a
She's
real
the
deal.
when you talk about a musician, she's the
Yes.
real deal. When
Yeah.
you talk about
Yeah.
oh, I can rap on a song, okay, but
Yeah.
when you're talking about the real deal, when
favorite
you're talking
artist.
about an Ed Sheeran, a her,
Right.
like
That's just multifaceted, just smart, like just very.
just a musicianship all around. She plays guitar, sings.
Yeah, plays
Ed
drums.
Sheeran does the looping on stage. Like
I know.
that's an
And
art.
It's just him,
To-
by the way, which is crazy.
to move 100,000 people
Right, by
with
himself.
a guitar and a pedal and slapping on it,
Right.
you got talent.
Bro, beyond. Right, like that's insane.
Most people need a symphony, the drums,
Dancer,
all the
go
dancers,
crazy.
and all
Yeah,
that
yeah,
shit.
yeah.
Obviously, with CB, the dancers accentuate because he's a dancer.
Oh, yeah,
That's-
but
that's
yeah,
his
we,
art.
that's
So-
a part of his.
that's his
We
art.
want that.
But
right.
he, in his own right, he doesn't necessarily play an instrument, but because he's able to do the dancing and the singing,
Right.
that's his full-on artistry as
Right,
well.
right.
He's so good at so like he paints. Like if you go to his house, like his whole house is
Yeah.
an art museum.
Right.
Like he has graffiti artists that come and paint with him and like do shit together.
do shit.
He's so good at painting. He's so good at fucking singing. So good at dancing.
Genius guy,
And he's a
man.
very like also too. It's not just he's huge Chris fan over here too. Facts. I love the fact that you're speaking to that because Chris is an artist. He's an artist through
He's a
and
real
through.
artist. Whether it be, oh, well, can
Yeah.
you play guitar? No, but he does all the other shit. You know
such
what I
an
mean? Like,
artist.
Can Ed Sheeran play the flute? No, but he's still
actually-
fucking good. You know what I'm saying?
Can he dance like Chris Brown?
Ed Sheeran's like, hold on, I actually can't.
I know. He's actually
No
mate.
one can dance like Chris.
Not us.
no
So,
one.
can I
Bro,
tell you something?
this dude will
Hold
do
on,
a backflip right in front of you.
Let me say one thing about Chris. Hold on.
Backflip.
No, I gotta say
I
this
gotta
because
get
I
this
grew
one.
up in Chris era. He destroyed everything. Hold on. Chris destroyed everything. Let me tell you something. Back when I was younger, right? I was into music groups and stuff. You know,
Yeah.
we used to
The groups were a thing.
Yes,
Groups were a
we used to
thing.
dance and stuff like that. And you know, Usher was the standard, right?
Yes, Usher was the standard of dancing.
Usher was the standard for me for dancing. So you know, Usher, you dancing, but you could do Usher moves, right?
Usher moves are a lot easier to replicate than Chris
Very
moves.
much so.
The sensational dance is I tried it in the mirror. I feel like such an idiot. I can't do that shit.
Yo, I'm not gonna lie. I never forget the day Chris Brown performed for the first time at I think it was BET Awards. And
with the suit. Yeah.
bro, and it was his first.
Was it a Michael Jackson tribute?
Not that
No,
one.
okay.
It was like his first live performance, like the first time the world was seeing him live.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. I was sitting with my mother in the living room. I did music. I danced. Everybody was like, "You're the best, Devvon. You're so great." I was like, "Word." Chris Brown got on that stage, and I remember me and my mom were watching. And I swear to God, me and my mother, I'm a kid. I said, "Yo, he the one." That's what you said. I swear to God, I said, "He's the
Zaire,
one."
get ready
And
to
we
clip
all
this.
stopped dancing. We
Get
was like,
ready to
"It's
clip
done."
this because this is a whole community. We all know this that this topic is a huge community just online and in life. But that's what you said to your mom. I remember seeing the Kiss Kiss music video, and I ran into my mother's room in fourth grade, and I was like, "Mommy, this guy right here, he's the next Michael Jackson." And I stand on that, like over a decade later. I stand on that.
I hear you.
Chris
He's on
is
another
dope,
fucking
bro.
level.
Oh,
I'm so happy we
Chris is so
stumbled
dope.
on this because I wanted to ask this off camera, but I mean we're here. Right?
Oh, camera.
I saw him do a move, right? It was like a
Yeah, he be doing
Is
the-
he a human being?
I think he's an alien. Bro, I'm gonna tell you. I remember. Do you guys remember when there was that Jeezy Nicki Minaj single? I don't remember what it was called.
Yeah.
with Chris.
I vaguely remember
So
this.
we were. I went to the video shoot and we were all in the trailer. And Chris is tired, like he had just woken up and he's just like chilling, tired.
Right.
He gets in front of that camera. Chris, like before it was Christopher Maurice.
Right.
Now it's Chris Brown. He comes. I looked in the camera. I was like, that is not the guy that was just sitting us in the fucking trailer. Like, yeah, no, that's cool. Like whatever.
Just laid
just
down,
chill.
like-
Just chill. Like whatever. He gets in front of that camera. It turns on. Like it's a light switch.
Right.
And the crazy part is like when I've gone on tour with him, like spot dates. I don't like going on full
Sure.
tour because I'm bougie as fuck.
I hear you.
And he gets the cool room.
Right.
The rest of us sit on that bench for 18 hours. So he'll come off stage and like be like, "Yo, was it good?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? You were?" He's like, he kind of like it's like he turns into the alien to that shit.
right.
Where he'll come off and he'll come back off and now he's Christopher Maurice
Right.
Brown and but he was Chris Brown on that stage.
And he's
like,
asking you like, "Hey, was I
was
alright?"
it dope?
Was it dope? He said, "Hey, man, it's
because
like,
he didn't
what?
see it. I saw it, and everyone else saw it. But it was like he's so in there, like he's
in
such a
it.
genius. Like
Right. That he's just in autopilot.
yeah, but I
like, going.
think part of it is he's been doing it so long,
right.
and he's been him for so long that it's just a light switch.
Right.
He turns right into the guy.
Right, and
You
that's
know?
it.
Wow, we asked. This is my last question.
Yeah.
we sometimes ask this. What artists? And I wonder if Chris is the answer. But what artists were you in the studio with that you were surprised of their like audio knowledge? Like as far
Oh
as
shit!
level,
Offset.
Word?
Really?
Yeah. Well, the thing about Chris is when he came up at that time, he'd go in the studio. There was an engineer, a producer, an A&R. So he would just go in the booth, record whatever. So he never was the guy that was like, I got to record myself.
Right.
Then you get the new generation of guys, and like Offset will sit behind you and be like, nudge it 2 samples to the right, 2 samples to the right. 2 samples to the
he's one of
right.
those.
He knows the sample amounts. He knows the millisecond amounts. Like he's really into it.
Right.
From what I hear, Travis is like really
Yes.
on it.
Yeah, Anthony,
That's what
shout
I
out
haven't
Anthony
been in the room with
told
Travis.
us.
We've done records and stuff like that, but
Right.
he's supposedly can get on the computer
And do
and
his
do
work.
shit.
Right.
Baines has told me that Thug is very like,
he's
on
in
it.
tune.
Like,
In
if
tune,
he can't
he
use the
knows.
mouse, he gonna tell you exactly what to fucking do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so I feel like it's the newer generations, the ones that grew up recording themselves or
Yeah.
in a room by themselves versus Chris came up in the fucking industry.
Yes.
Engineer, producer, A&R in the room, manager in the room.
Right.
Label heads in the room.
Right.
There's a different aspect. Now that shit doesn't exist.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, A&Rs can't come to the room.
Yeah,
when
thank
we're
you.
working.
Yeah, thanks for that.
makes
No shade to
No shade. It's
Yeah,
just
no, I
like
hate
a lot
that.
of artists like to have their space and they like to create with just their engineer.
Yeah.
And they'll still be like, and don't get me wrong, like Chris will be like, yo, verify that. Yo, do a beat drop right there and make it go da 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 da. And then I just have to go
Okay.
look at the grid, da 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 da. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And like he'll he'll still communicate exactly what he needs in his own way, and I translate it. So he'll be like, make it go like da 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 da. Right. So then I'll look at the grid and I'll try to picture like where those, as I'm playing it, and he's telling me, I'm picturing, and I'm like taking a snapshot. It goes there, it goes there, there, there.
You know what I mean? He's looking at the cursor.
Yeah, you look at the cursor and you kind of play it in your head, and that's another thing is like I'll hear stuff and he'll hear stuff where it'll play, and I'll play the beat drop in my head even though it's not there yet, and then I'll know to do it.
Got you.
And sometimes it doesn't sound like it doesn't. I don't know if you've noticed this.
Yeah.
You'll hear something in your head like a delay,
and
you'll be like, I want it to be like da 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 da, and then you'll do it and be like, it just doesn't sound like.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that.
Yeah, 100%. And that just happens because in your head you're kind of living on a fantasy, right? You know what I mean? You have to translate that to the real world,
right? Every single time.
Every single time.
That was amazing.
I want to wrap this up.
Yes.
And you know, Teezio, I just want to say, you know, when we first started this podcast and everything, you know, we had kind of like Mount Rushmore of the people that we wanted. And by the way, it's a lot. It's a big Mount Rushmore, by the way.
Yeah, it's like a lot of heads.
Yeah, it's a lot of heads. And, you know, I just really genuinely want you to know, like, man, you were one of those people
man, I appreciate
that we just really wanted on the show. It was a pipe dream. To be honest, I can't believe within a year we were able to get you to come and sit and stuff like that. You know, we want the Baines. We want the Judge Jassy. We wanted the Teezios, you know, shout out Mixed by Ali, Anthony Cruz, everybody that's, you know,
Cruz, my boy,
came by and stuff like that. And we just really want to say, man, like, thank you. I'm speaking for myself, not the community, but I know that there's people in the community.
Don't speak for them. They're going to start fucking commenting.
You know the vibe. You know I know what I'm doing.
Speak for people.
Yeah, I'm speaking for myself, but I think I'm not alone when I say, man, thank you so much for giving back.
For real.
You know what I mean?
No,
and
it's what
sharing
it's
your
about.
story.
It's what it's about. You got to uplift the next generation.
Right.
If we don't, then we're doing them a disservice.
Right.
And that goes across the board, like even financially. Like I have conversations with people about taxes and how to write things, like all the way down to that. And we engineers here, but we talking about, okay, when you get bread, make sure you get a tax guy. Make sure you're paying your shit. Make sure you make a company and the labels are paying your company and you're paying yourself a salary. Like it goes that deep because if you start fucking up there, you're not going to be able to continue working at peace like we were speaking about earlier, where you want to be like everything's chill, all my bills are paid, all my shit's done. Like that's a huge, the whole thing is a huge part of everything. Right. Everything affects everything. So across the board, I mean, I always give game on what I've learned about every facet, POs, kill fees, all that shit. Because it's important because it goes with everything. If you only learn one piece of it and you're lacking here, this is also going to lack.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And that's something that we trying to really come across with our platform, just as far as, and we said it off camera, I was telling you, I was like, I really want to have a platform where the generation kind of knows like, hey, these are the people. You know what I mean? And I want them to also see that you guys are not like gatekeeping or hiding things.
No, not at all.
I don't want y'all to know, like everybody that I've met, literally, like all my heroes, like you and Ali and all of y'all, like literally every time I meet you, I'm like, I can't believe you're sitting with me and telling me. Like, it's because I come from
it's knowledge that whether I have learned it from somewhere else or I figured it out on my own, you have to pass it down. Right. If you don't, like, if you really care about music as a whole, and you're not giving the next people the tools, then do you really love music as a whole? Right. Because when you're out of it, they gonna fuck that shit up.
That's a fact.
So like, if you know what I mean. So you have to. And I know some of the old school guys, like they don't do this type of shit because they came up in a different time.
True, understood.
Which is their thing. But I'm giving anything I've learned. If you ask me a question, how should I do this? I'm gonna always give you the answer because. And first of all, I don't want to be an asshole that's like, I'm not telling you. Yeah. You know, that's kind of like a dick move. Like, are you that insecure that you feel like this person's going to learn one thing from you and take all your clients? Right. That's Right. It doesn't really work that way. As you know, like, you could mix a fucking #1 record, you still not taking other people's clients.
That's a fact. That's true.
You know what I mean? So just give the information. It's free information. I might write a book one day on fucking. It's gonna be a short book, but it's just gonna be like a template, maybe a little schematic of a template, and like a drawing of something, and that's the end of the book.
No, let us know. We'll
I want to give the information.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We want to tell. We want to, and we also want to inspire them because a lot of times people are overthinking things and they're like, it's too hard to do. Right. And then I'm like, well, why don't you try it like this? That worked for me, and and I'm the simple guy. Right. I love simple. Right. So if anyone's ever getting overwhelmed from something, like I'll give them a solution. Right. And that's part of my job too, and all of our jobs. When an artist has a problem, when the label has a problem, when the mix has a problem, we find solutions. Right. So if someone has an issue with not being able to figure something out, I'm going to give them a solution that works for me. Right. If it works for them, cool. If it doesn't, then shit, ask Cruz, ask Baines, ask someone else. Right. You know what I'm saying? If you got gear questions and you're a gearhead, ask Baines. Right. Don't ask me because I'm going to tell you to sell that shit.
So he more your team right there.
I'm with it.
He's like, sell that shit.
Yes,
But
sir.
once again, I want to thank everybody for helping out, even the crew. Jay, I want to thank Jay for putting this helping us
gang.
put this damn thing together. Jordan,
guys.
JB,
Republic Records.
Blue Republic Records, everybody, the behind the scenes, Fritz, everybody that really helped us put this whole thing together. Shout out Republic Records. Also for just letting us use the space. I hope this is the first.
I love this fucking space.
I do
no, it's
too, and it caught me off guard. I was really happy when they just like were like, sure. We was like, what? We was like, all right, bet. So I'm hoping it's the first of many.
I think it's really great when big companies see value in things that are coming up, because that shows that they understand the value at an early stage, which is really important.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because I'm sure you guys have heard a
Oh
lot.
my God. Yeah,
And I bet you now and moving forward, it's a regret.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's the same thing with finding an artist and saying yes to them in their early stage, because something,
Right.
or whatever the case may be. Even the way Juicy had, I was like, I don't know anything. He's like, I just want a fresh engineer I can train.
Right.
You know what I mean? He saw something in me.
Right.
And
just ran
same
with
with Chris. He saw something in me. That's why he kept me for so long. I was to this day. I mean, it's been 7 years since I started working for Chris.
Right. And that's a hard thing to
know what I
keep
mean?
somebody for 7 years. Like,
Yeah, and although I don't record for him, I'm still there in every facet.
Right.
He needs me to go get him a packet. So you need some weed, you need some pack. I'll go drive it to you. I live 15 minutes away. I'll go drive it. I'm not beneath that shit. Like, I'll just go. I want to make sure you're always taken care of.
Right,
You know,
right.
across the board. And all of us, I feel like, do that for
some
our
some
people.
capacity for our people. Now I respect that. And like you said, just to wrap things up, what you were saying as far as like people just not being early adopters to things and seeing our platform and just like saying no. Like, hell yeah.
It's gonna happen.
It was
People have said no to me for mixing records,
I'm
and
sure.
then they see me mix other shit. Like, damn, we the
Right.
price is double now, bitch.
Facts, man. Exactly. And that's why, when it comes to like, just even us with sponsors and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
100%.
people starting to see our value and stuff like that. And I want other people to understand this too. It's like when we're going out looking for sponsors, because I would love to even grow this platform even more so we can do even crazier shit for the community, right?
Crazy shit.
So for us, it's just like when we get people like you and Ali and all of you guys to kind of support what we got going on there, it really means a lot, because I feel like we're changing what things used to be.
No, you guys are making waves.
Thanks, man.
Tsunamis.
Thanks, man.
So
it really means a lot.
You guys are really built a platform that I feel like the youngest generation of people that are coming up can connect to.
Right.
Some of these older ones, and we won't say names, like they don't connect, I feel like, with those 20-year-old, 18-year-old, the ones that are getting out of college or in college.
And trying to just
Yeah,
get
because
in.
it's like,
Right.
like with me, for example, like with the records that I've mixed, people hear those records. So it's like when I get to speak about those things, they get to make that connection. Like,
Yes.
damn.
Because you're with them.
The industry, baby, has that many horns.
Right.
Man, I didn't even know that. But if you say, yo, this record from 1990 with Biggie, then I'm like, what song is that?
That's very
Because,
true.
and it's not their fault. It's just motherfuckers was born in 2002, 2003. That was after 9/11. Like,
that's him. You just shot at him OD. Yeah, 03.
He just shot at him
19.
OD.
Yeah, he's a kid.
Yeah,
but I get what you're
gotta,
saying.
You gotta make them connect, and
Right.
that's why having people like me, Baines, even David Young Kim, and all of us, like,
Yeah, David, yeah.
we're able to connect with the viewers because the records that we're working on currently are ones that they are able to connect with
Now.
and that's important.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And that's what we want to keep perpetuating and stuff like that. But so,
100%.
again, like, one time clap it up for Teezio, man. For real. Like, real talk, man.
I'm gonna clap for y'all, though. These claps are for y'all.
Oh, thank you, bro. And once again, man, I can't tell you enough, like, how thankful I am. I know our members are gonna go crazy because they're gonna get this way before everyone first.
Oh,
like,
fire. Yeah. I'm excited
So
for that.
I'm excited for that. And man, I just can't wait to put this out in the ethos, man, and just
I'm
for
ready.
people to see this, man.
Oh,
Yeah, I
we-
want
this is
people
gonna be
to-
clip for 6.
Oh, this is for 2. We might have to just skip the next.
Yo,
that
but
episodes
yo,
go.
like, low key, go easy on the comments though, cause you're gonna make me sad. Bro. I'm gonna be reading like, oh, that's not what I said. That's not what I meant.
Yeah, in fact, like, he burns his auto-tune. Listen, this man
This
is
guy
nominated.
burnt, yo.
Right.
Actually,
exactly.
Autotune Evo is actually the same as the new Autotune.
You know what? The algorithm's the same. You guys are dumb. Anyway, thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
We're gonna wrap this
Thank
up.
you so much for coming,
Shout out my
man.
guy Joey, also recorded.
And on that note,
This is the My Audio Nerds podcast for audio nerds like yourself. Please make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Remember also that one lucky person is going to get that exclusive VIP Gold Edition Rosetta compressor. So make sure you comment, leave an @name for Instagram so we can DM you and hit you about it. Guys, thank you so much. This is a dream come true. To be honest, this is because of y'all. So I want to say thank you to our audience for allowing us to have the space to literally just talk to our heroes. And I hope that you're getting something out of it. Did you have something?
Oh yeah, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Yeah,
I knew you was gonna throw it in.
I'm giving away FL again. So
link in the
if you want FL
description.
Giving away FL, let's go.
And shout out
shout out.
High Note also. It's one of the
we
platforms.
listening to y'all songs right now as we speak.
That's a fact, and I know that we'll be posting more, and especially the winner and stuff like that, really soon. So pay attention to that. But nonetheless, thank you so much for everyone for being here. This is my Audio Nerds podcast. We out of here, y'all.
We out. Let's go eat.
Facts.
Wait, let's find a good place to eat.
Yo, I'm gonna say we gotta find.
Okay,
a
we
spot.
gotta
Let's
go
find
on.
the
Okay,
spot
look, we're
first.
going on Yelp right now. The most stars wins.
Okay.